Welcome to the Visualcast. Coming at you from California, I'm your host, Alon Hammer, AKA Rem. The Visualcast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, systems, crystals, alien downloads, spirituality, and catalysts. It's essentially a massive nerd out. But the guests also do a set where we dive into their computer and get an up-and-close look at how they make art, how they perform art, or really anything they want to share with us. Episode 29 coming at ya, which is a pretty crazy thing to say. We have an absolute legend and super honoring guest, Thomas Mann AKA Pixtur, AKA the father of Tooll. For those who haven't been initiated, Tooll, spelt with two L's, is a powerful, free, node-based, open-source software for generating visual effects and motion graphics for installations, live performances, and VJing. It's easy to learn, yet incredibly powerful, and I highly recommend downloading it today and trying it out. Thomas is a world-class developer and artist, finding his chops and notoriety in the demo scene. He then became a super high-in-demand developer, working for such companies as Nokia, among many others. Somewhere in the early 2000s, Thomas started Tooll. Almost 2 decades later, it is a fully fledged software with a striving community and a handful of dedicated developers. He is also half of the audiovisual project Wake, together with his wife Lena Kilkka. Check them out, link down below. For Pixtur's set, he graciously performs an audiovisual set, building it from scratch in front of our eyes. Accompanied by music from The Same, Thomas shows us the absolute power of Tooll and how intuitive, fluid, and fast it can be to create a beautiful and immersive audiovisual set on the fly. He then shows us into some outstanding workflows and techniques inside Tooll and some up-and-coming features. Thomas is a force of nature, an extremely fascinating human being, and an untapped faucet of inspiration, history, and knowledge. I thoroughly enjoyed talking with him, and I know you will as well. And we have a new record for the longest episode. So make sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong, tell us who you want to see next on the show. And without any further ado, here's the Visualcast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Of what is possible and what is available right now on the market in terms of visual generative tools. So super happy to have him on. Welcome to the podcast, Thomas.
Hey, yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me, man. I should really get you into the team for marketing and stuff. So
oh yeah,
selling it.
I'm a classic Jewish Israeli. I can sell anything you want.
I mean, a bunch of corrections are maybe applicable. So I'm only one of the developers. So the actual I started with a bunch of friends of mine. Now I'm more or less doing most of the front end stuff and from the usability stuff. But there are also a bunch of other people contributing quite a bit. So
awesome.
It's a team effort. So credit should be given where due.
100%.
So it's a community thing. And now if you look at the credits on GitHub or so, there are now 24 or so people that contributed. So it's getting there.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, one of the beautiful things about Tooll, and we're definitely going to get into it fully, is the community. I think that's a really nice thing that you built there. Okay, so I usually start off with a pretty forward introduction and question, and then we'll get into more conversation. So, Pixtur, the master and creator, among others, behind Tooll 3, a free, open source, powerful, extremely driven, real-time generative visual environment that I cannot recommend more. From working at Nokia as a UX designer to being a prominent figure in the demo scene, you have done such amazing things in your career, and now developing this free platform that so many artists are enjoying and creating on is super, super powerful. So to start things off, what is your vision for the future of generative design and for Tooll 3 in general?
Okay. Okay, so maybe it's not a vision, but it's like it's something I've been wondering for quite a while now, for maybe like, let's say 10 years or so. And so we started with at the demo scene, like there are different groups building tools. Notch is one of these tools. There are a bunch of other tools that groups build just to make demos. And eventually, like you stop competing, but you're more like developing into friends and discussing things. And eventually you try to define what's a good tool, what makes a good tool. And then for me, like the only metric that counts is how fast you can create stuff. And then the ultimate goal of creating stuff is creating stuff live while you listen to music. So basically VJing, like, okay, like if you take away the video jockey and replace video with like real-time content that is being generated, you're not jogging, you're not shuffling, but you're creating stuff on the fly while listening to a music, it's a soundtrack you never heard before. Like this is the ultimate goal of a good tool. And I think this is also what has been driven me, or what drove me, or whatever the right grammar here is, for like the last couple of years, like to always like craft usability to make it faster. Not to make it run faster, but to make it be usable faster.
More intuitive.
And yeah, more intuitive, but also like just more rapid, more like hands-on. So, I mean, obviously it's not After Effects, so you don't have to wait for rendering. It's always like, there is no play mode like in Unity, like it's always running.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like, like an artist that is like a sculpture, like the sculpture is in front of you and you're sculpting the thing while you're doing it. And there is no full view or no high quality view. Like the thing is the thing you're building. And eventually I have this vision, which is like a little bit megalomaniac, but I keep wondering why DJs, I mean, to start with, like, it's a little bit strange that DJs earn more than normal artists. I mean, okay, maybe there is like Taylor Swift or stuff, but on Coldplay, maybe they earn more, but like, like it's just insane how much money DJs make. And frequently it's not their music, they are rehashing something they heard. And it's like, this is like totally strange. And then it's like even worse that you have like you have a club and then like announce the DJ, and nobody asks about like the VJ. The VJ gets free drinks.
Yeah. And
I think this is like so peculiar, if you think about like the senses and what senses are. Of
course.
Like then actually the eyes are, I think, more significant. And I think I'm dreaming of VJing being like a little bit of playing an instrument. People also going to a venue to view and watch a VJ perform. And like if I can contribute just a teeny weeny bit to that, then things are perfect. This is my mission. So,
that's beautiful. It's a great mission, and it's it's tough. This is something that, like, obviously we all deal with as visual artists, and VJs particularly. Especially nowadays when like so many, I go to a lot of festivals in Europe and do visuals. A lot of festivals now understand the importance of the VJs, and there's a VJ lineup. We're on the flyer, but some still don't do it. And then at the same time, we're like the main part of the show. The DJ, of course, the music is driving the force. It's kind of like the composer, if you were. But what are people looking at on the dance floor? What are they getting? Like, light is just as much of a frequency as sound, if not better, because it's also particles. It's double. So you get like, you're getting much, like you said, the experience itself is multisensorial. So why not, incorporate the people that are doing the lights and the visuals and the lasers and all these things into this kind of like ethos of this is the person running the show. You know, and now shows getting bigger and bigger. You know, you have these, I personally don't love them so much, but you have shows like, I don't have anything against the people that make the shows, just the shows in general, the ideas of them, but like the anima and, the kind of these massive, huge LED shows where the DJ is like a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing. And the main thing that people are coming to, they're pulling out their phones to capture what's on the screen. So, I think that that's kind of been a trend for a long time. And I think that the underground, it's funny because like on the opposite side, the underground is almost like catching up, where usually it's the opposite, where the mainstream is catching up to the underground. But I think it's a matter of like, money and cost and things like this. But now more and more, VJing and kind of video mapping and projection mapping is something that's kind of synonymous with a party. You're either going to have an LED screen or you're going to have some cool stage that's projection mapped. And I think that's amazing. I'm very happy and proud to be part of that. But there's still an issue where it comes to, and it's not like I don't think it's an ego thing. I mean, I've met hundreds, if not thousands of VJs, and 99% of them are the most closeted, non-ego people ever. There's nobody wants to see their names in light, but you want to get some sort of recognition for the work that you're doing. And also it's like, it's education for the audience, so the audience has some sort of understanding of like what's going on. It's not just automatic. It's not just the DJ's pressing play. There's a person behind it doing it.
Yep. Totally. I mean, it's this one thing of, I think audiovisual stuff is, I think, the only example for synergy that makes sense for me. Obviously there are synergies all over the place, Blend Live and so on, Beatles and so on, like, harvesting stuff. But with audiovisual stuff, you listen to a track, it's awesome. You watch a video, it's awesome. You watch both of them and they match perfectly, and it's killer.
It's killer.
And that's why like the best shows is like, if you have like average music, it's like, if you have average visuals, if you have like great visuals and great audio, it's like, but if it's synced, then it's killer. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen like a show by Robert Henke, he's the developer of Ableton, like the software. Okay. But he's also like crazy good at like lasers and stuff. So really? Like
cool. What is it called?
And he's a great composer. It's just Robert Henke. He's like, if you look at
without the accent, without the accent, say it.
Robert Henke, like
Robert Henke. Okay.
Henke, like H-E and K.
Okay. You were saying it. Gotcha.
Yeah, so and he's like, he has a group called Monolith and stuff. But
cool.
I mean, like his stuff is just insane. It's like not huge. It's not like that he's using like millions of pixels. It's just crazy precision syncing. And you can see that it comes together, and he is actually filling holes just by like his name, and that amazing. People know that it's audiovisual. And this is like the whole thing like of syncing. This is basically like the main thing that drives me insane, but it also drives me forward. So
you just made me remember. Did you ever see the Pink Floyd and the Wizard of Oz syncing of like the Dark Side of the Moon with the Wizard of Oz? Have you ever seen this?
No, but
it was like a meme in the 90s, but it became like a thing, like where if you play Dark Side at a certain timestamp and then you play Wizard of Oz, certain things sync up. It's not like audio-visual, but there's like this syncing kind of thing, and it's very random, but it like is very powerful to like the beauty of audiovisual of like these things, like, like this very perfect album with this very perfect movie, that they have these like synchronicities. It kind of almost proves this idea that when you have something that's like made to work together, it's going to be very powerful, right? Okay, Thomas, I want to like go a little bit to your to little Thomas. I read somewhere that you have been coding from the age of 12, and or a very young age, let's say.
Well, I was 12, but I was coding. I was trying to type something with like an old GDR computer. And every time you pressed one and make a mistake, you had to type it again because there wasn't any way to store stuff.
That's crazy.
Cassette tapes even. It was very old times back then, but yeah.
That's crazy. So like, what got you into that? Like, what was your, I mean, obviously you're a massive nerd, but like, what was, what kind of got you into wanting to play with computers, and even before computers, I guess, like kind of wanting to play with these kind of devices and things? Was there somebody in your life or family that
I don't know. I mean, like I remember like I grew up in a GR, East Germany.
Okay.
And there like resources were scarce. Like if you would want to have like a computer, you just couldn't go into the store and buy a computer. Like just as you couldn't go into the store and buy a car. And it was not an amount of money, but it was the problem that like there were
scarce.
I don't know, let's say 5,000 computers in the whole country or so, and they were needed for stuff. It's like was a super scarce resource. And for some reason, I don't know what got into my brain, but I was obsessed with computers because I heard about somewhere, and I read there was like a small little like you can tell about like a communist what you want, but they were really excessive when it came to education, and especially engineering education.
Interesting.
So when they had magazines like explaining you how to program, how to write BASIC without having a computer, just like filling out little stuff on pencil and so on.
That's so crazy.
Little games. And I remember building my first computer, which was like made of cardboard, and there was like a piece of like a roll of paper that you could basically find through the display. So it looked like the thing would be scrolling. So it was like, and I don't know where it came from, but this was my obsession. And I eventually had a deal with my mom. So you can go to the computer club if you go to sports. So this was the deal. So I had to do just as much sport, go swimming and stuff, as I have to go to the computer. And then you had to actually go to places to use computers. So you don't have a computer at home, but you have to go to like some kind of public building. And then they taught you like first you have to program. First you have to learn soldering, and then you have to learn programming on a pocket calculator. Twice. Pocket Programmieren auf dem Taschenrechner 1 and 2. And then you had to work your way up. Then you had to Basic, Fortran, Pascal, and eventually Machine. And then these people like working at these places, they were super nice. So they eventually, like here, these people are like the students are motivated. So they just gave you their private books of like, here's a book about programming. Read that, come back, ask questions. And so I ramped up from there, and I really liked it. And I liked working with other people, like learning from them.
Interesting.
It was just my home.
Was it like, I mean, this is like a little bit of, not political per se, but like, do you think that there was like this push from like East Communist Germany to like get people in the workforce to like learn engineering and computers, or was it just like very natural of just like these centers were coming up? No,
this was all planned. Like they had like it was obvious. Okay, computers are the future, or like one possible futures. We need engineers, so they like this was all like centrally organized. So they said, okay, like we need.
Let's get the
If you want
interest
to
of
be
the
there
young
in like
generation.
5 years, yeah, we have to. And then they had people coming through the schools. You know, like let's say in math class or so, somebody
Just
came
peeking.
in. And this is Mr. Franze, and he wants to talk to you. And then he spoke to, okay, anybody is interested in chemicals, in chess, in computer games, in like this and this, and you're like all kinds of stuff. And then if you said, oh, I'm interested, then they said like, okay, come next week. Here's the address.
Interesting.
And then they basically sift you through and
some program.
try to, yeah. And it was like for me, it was perfect. You know, like it gave me some kind of like never-ending thing of like, okay, like this is fun. And this will always be fun because you will never stop learning because there's just so much stuff. So
and it's always evolving. So you're like kind of like you learn one thing and then a new thing is coming out and then you learn another thing.
Yep.
It's very powerful.
Yep.
Super cool. I mean, I always love, like you're obviously older than me, but I love to hear the stories of people that are, the previous generation of like kind of their introduction to the things that nowadays are so obvious, right? Like my baby like touches my phone and plays with my phone. I don't let him touch the phone, but he does because he's, he wants to play with what I'm playing with. But he's obviously going to like a smartphone, which is something that like I even remember when smartphones came into the market and blew the whole world out of the water. For him, it's going to be something that's so simple. So it's just interesting to see this kind of like, your first computer being some like rudimentary like paper thing, and like now you're like pushing pixels on a GPU that's calculating who knows, 1 billion times faster than that, maybe even 1 trillion times faster, who knows. So super fascinating. You then went to study architecture in Berlin. What kind of was the catalyst for that? You kind of, it's very also kind of almost, obviously there's similar worlds of like this kind of like math brain of like, understanding structure and design and something, but they're very different, right? One is more artistic and one is more kind of like left, right side brain. What kind of made you want to go study architecture?
I mean, for some reason, I always liked both a little bit. I liked a little bit of drawing and I liked a little bit of like coding. And for some reason, like all my friends, like in my my group, I was a little bit younger, and everybody else already started computer science at the Technical University in Berlin.
Right.
And so I joined them, and I was sitting in this building. I still vividly remember like having like the first online conversation with like somebody, like a stranger, you could say, like nobody. It sounds like creepy. But back then it was just like there's somebody else sitting in a computer somewhere in the world typing these letters and they're appearing on it. It was like complete madness, like super crazy. But like this building was so horrible. It was just a super ugly building, and most of the stuff they learned, back then I found boring. And then I was like, okay, let's try something else. And then they go,
did you know what they were teaching already?
Okay.
Like, did they? You knew it already what they were teaching, kind of thing. You were already advanced at that point.
Well, I mean, we talked about like the course program and stuff. I mean, like like if you are like study when you are 18 or 17 or something.
Right.
So you have a mature brain, and you can like this computer language is ugly. Also, you have like not so much an evolved brain that you can actually judge things. You have an opinion, but that opinion is not really well formed.
You're immature. Yeah.
Yeah. And back then I thought, like, okay, like this is like the most boring stuff. I like if I go there, I will die. Let's try something else. And then I tried like architecture because it started with A. So and there was no numerus clausus, so I could join the university. And supposedly they had a good ratio between male and female students.
Oh, that's important. So that's very important. Yeah.
I mean, like
Definitely.
like back then, the
Easy
ratio
choice.
in the computer science was like
Yeah.
97% male or something. Like it was like
I can
super,
imagine. That's so
yeah,
interesting.
super sexist back then.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm just sure it wasn't like there was no interest for women to be part of this thing either. Like you said, like they're going around schools choosing the people. They probably didn't even listen to the woman, you know, like, yeah, sexist, I guess, for sure.
I'm not sure. Like okay, I mean the wall, like Germany was united 5 years earlier. So like it was like already everybody had their computer, and I had my computer. I had a proper PC and stuff.
When you
So,
when you went to university, you went to university after the wall went down.
yeah,
Okay,
way
got you,
later.
got you.
You know, like,
Got you,
I'm
got
not
you,
that
got you,
old.
got you.
I'm old, but not that old. So the wall, like the East Germany, came down when I was 15 or something.
Okay,
So,
okay. That's still pretty crazy that you were a teenager during that time. Like that must have been such a
yeah.
crazy memory, like
Crazy,
of this whole
crazy,
thing. Like it
crazy
must have been
times.
crazy. Yeah.
Very rewarding. It's like it's like one of these things. If you
Live through it.
live through it, it's something like, okay, like this really forms you, like not in a negative way, but it really gives you like a certain
Perspective.
stability.
Mm.
Yeah, perspective also. Yeah, and you walk around like, like stuff like nobody has anything to give you. Like at least like not a company. Like if you don't pay for it, there is always a catch. And then if you grow up in capitalism, you might not really notice it. But if you get like the complete 180-degree shift, you are really like you think, oh, like wait, like this is like completely fucked up.
Interesting.
And then this is really helpful because sometimes like I watch people like, are you fucking crazy? I mean, like of course Google is tracking you. Like why is the service for free? I mean, like like it's a business. Yeah. Like how can you even like not imagine this? I mean, it's just fine that they're tracking, but like I'm always confused like how naive some people are.
Oh yeah,
like,
or they don't want to admit it or something like this. But that's so fascinating. Like what you're saying, I love that perspective. Like coming from this kind of almost communist kind of like not decrepit per se, but like almost failed kind of place, and then all of a sudden you're being viewed into this like massive Western society. Like was it so obvious? Like when the wall, like could you go into Western Germany before the wall came down? Were you able to go back? Not at all.
No, you
couldn't. You didn't. Did you know what was going on behind the wall?
Well, I mean, there's like Berlin separated. So there's a West Berlin, which is an island, or used to be an island inside East Germany. And then you had like, obviously you could look across the wall. There was a wall, but you could look over it and see like, buildings that are a little bit more beautiful.
Right.
Sometimes. And to be honest, I was super lucky. For me, like the timing was perfect. And I'm very grateful for that because I know that if it would have been, let's say, a couple of more years, things would have gotten really, 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 really difficult. Because I already know, like a bunch of my friends went to prison because they rebelled and stuff. So I was like, back then I was like a teenager. I was like, interested in my computers.
Yeah.
But I already started to complain. And if you do this, you go to prison.
Yeah, of course.
But back then, after the wall came down and you went to the other side, it was like, this system is completely broken. Like this is like completely like they have homeless people. Like they have fucking people living on the street.
Crazy.
Like nobody was homeless in East Germany.
Of course. Well, they were either in jail or they were.
Yeah, or like like graffiti everywhere. Like like stinks like piss. They can't manage to clean up their streets. I mean, like West Berlin was pretty crappy back
fucked
then.
Up. Yeah.
And I was like really like okay, like if this is the Golden West, I can't see it. Like it really took a while to see like the lure of like, yes, you can buy everything you want. Like, but then you go into the store and they're like, okay, like they have like a trillion different types of toothbrush. Like,
Why?
what's like you're like what? Why?
Yeah.
Like what's like you're like who's benefiting from like,
Yeah.
like this doesn't make the world a better place.
Interesting.
And so like it was a very conscious like observation, and you learn
Yeah.
like okay, like there are things that are good in everything, and there are like super evil things in everything.
Yeah.
And it's like you should like because you made the switch, you just don't forget this. You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
It's very important. The only good
always both
system,
sides.
the only good system is a sound system. You know what I mean?
Well, depends on where you go, but yes, I know
Yeah,
places with a
could
good
be
sound
shitty
system.
music. That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, I mean, I think that you're really lucky, because I think that this perspective is what's missing in the world in so many places. Is, you know, people have this, and we're kind of getting into I like to save these kind of esoteric conversations for the second part of the podcast, but I'm happy to get into it because it's very interesting. But I think that this is what it's missing in so much of modern society, is this very black and white understanding of the world. You know, you can see it in politics, you can see it in policy, you can see it in, you know, in culture. There's always like, oh, my way is the right way, we're perfect. Okay, we have some problems, but it's the best way. I don't, you know, the other way is wrong. You know, China's bad, Russia's bad, you know, and Russia, America's bad, the West is bad. So it's like, but there's, like you said, there's always evil in both places, and there's always good in both places. And like having the perspective and being able to see both things is going to be what's going to make you a better person, what's going to make you be able to see this is bad and this is good. Not,
I mean,
this is...
I mean, I want to clarify, there are like a bunch of things that are always evil. You know,
Yeah,
like
for
being,
sure,
let's say, homophobe or so is always evil. You know, there is like no... yes, there might be reasons why people are homophobic, and most of the time it's probably that they didn't come out of a closet or something. You know, like there might
closeted.
be individual reasons that drive them to like certain things, but the result is always like there is no good thing.
For sure, for sure. No, there's subjective things that are bad and good, for sure. Yeah. But then there's so many things that are, objectively bad and good, not subjective. There's so many things that are subjectively bad and good that when you don't have an understanding of the other side or the other person, your mind is going to be manipulated very easily, and you're just not going to get a full broad experience of the world.
Yeah. It's like I'm super fortunate. I mean, like let's say if if you look at like I made like there's this like people sometimes focus on the stuff they missed. You know, and the missed opportunities and so on. Like I'm trying to focus on the stuff like all like the things that are actually this was perfect. And like this growing up while the wall came down was like something that was perfect. And being like able to like I hated mathematics, but there was this one math teacher that really like, oh wow, why do you hate it? Like, you can do so many cool things with this. So like I was like really happy in a bunch of things. And one of these things was like that I fell into like this demo scene thing, like a subculture, which is like completely insignificant for like everybody besides people in the demo scene. But if you are in there, it's like nice because it's like pretty diverse. You know, like you have like, I don't know, you have Russians, Ukrainians, Germans, Finns. You have all kinds, like like a complete spectrum, like and most of the time like very like I guess like people on the fringes tend towards subcultures.
Yeah.
And then it's like, wait, if you go party with them all the time, you're like, yes, Netanyahu might be a bitch, but I know a bunch of Jews that are not like, not like this worst example doesn't define the group. And like the same thing with like, like I know a bunch of Russians and they are super cool, just because Putin is an asshole or like, like trying to have his reason to do stuff doesn't mean that all Russians are like 100%. Aggressive and going, like it's,
That's a great segue to the demo scene, because I really wanted to talk to you about that. For people that don't know the demo scene, and maybe you can give a better introduction to it, but it's essentially was a very underground kind of, it's almost like what the visual VJ scene is today, but before that was kind of like a thing. And I think that it was kind of like almost a place for people that are programming, that are interested in, like kind of the visual output of programming, could meet and get connected, and there was music tied to it and parties tied to it. And it kind of was like the first time, maybe not the first time in a global sense, but the first time that you had this kind of like mixture of audio visual through computer graphics. Because obviously, Pink Floyd and other bands in the 60s and 70s had visuals, and even before that, you have like stage theater productions that mixed, light shadow puppets and things like this. And even before that, you have light machines and things like this. But I think that the demo scene is really one of the first places where you had a scene around this kind of audio visual idea. And the beautiful thing about the demo scene is that it was very open source, right? If I'm not mistaken, like there was no kind of like, no, is that not correct?
Let's say
it's the wrong word.
In the high times of the demo scene, let's say like the 15 years ago or something, groups were very competitive. And they like, the best thing you could ever do is like have like a super crazy effect, and people were like, how did they do this?
And you wouldn't tell?
Don't tell them.
Interesting.
No, you don't tell
them. So I always thought that it wasn't like that, because the visual scene today is not like that. If you learn something, most people are going to share it or want to show it to you. That was always my experience with other VJs. So I always thought that came from the demo scene, but you're saying it didn't. It's very interesting to know that.
I mean, like in the initial, it's kind of interesting. So like when I started, basically I thought, like, for instance, like a bunch of my closest friends, like they were the enemies.
Huh.
And like you had like this, like they are these Farbrausch guys, and they're always like doing these crazy stuff, and they must be like so, and they don't greet us because they hate us. And like you, if you are like young and naive, you were like really, I don't know, like I guess you don't think straight.
Yeah.
And then eventually, the scene got smaller because like
people started getting jobs. I assume.
Yeah, I mean, back then, like if you were successful in a demo scene, it was basically a proof that you could really work.
Right.
Maybe not structurally, but like you could really you like to work with computer graphics, or like anything of. You like to chip stuff, to release a product, which means that like it was super easy to get hired. A bunch of like big companies, like for instance DICE, got founded by demo scene people. I think like recently, like one guy, like from the Unity engine, I think Aras or so was his name. Like one of the main developers, like he was from the demo scene. So
Notch, of course, Notch.
Notch, Matt is from demo scene. So basically, if you want a party, or like you did a bunch of releases and you were looking for a job, they caught you from the street.
Yeah, it's like a CV almost of like, look what I can do in the street. Like obviously, if you can do it in the street.
I never had a job interview in my life. I mean, I had a job interview once at Nokia where the ceiling fell from the ceiling. Kind of interesting.
What happened? Wait, what happened at Nokia?
Yeah, like their department moved into a new building, and the new building, like the architects made some kind of mistake with like the air conditioning. Oh my God. And then literally the ceiling collapsed during the interview.
Oh my God.
And then they had to evacuate the building and stuff.
Shit. And you still went to work there.
I knew, like, the interview was like, you need to work for us. It was like that. It wasn't like I was applying for a job, but
they did they
poached you. They were aware of the demo scene, and then they were like, okay, like you do this, like you need to work for us. And it has always been like this. Now I guess like people got old and stuff, and they either reached like a senior level or they moved on and had kids and stuff. But back then it was like a lot of people started working basically. So the demo scene got smaller, and then you realized, wait a second, there are like only so many people that are really interested in this niche stuff. Like these are not your enemies. These are basically like if you have like the population of like all humans are the same, then you take like the subsection of like the demo scene people, like which is like teeny fraction. And like, okay, like all demo sceners are the same. Like they're all driven by the same thing. They don't care about like your hair color or skin color or like sex or whatever. Like they only care about like, okay,
how good are you? Right.
Yeah,
right.
like what are like do you have a release at the next demo party? Like these kind
how
of
many
things.
kilobytes is your file?
yeah, stuff like this.
How
like
many
why,
lines?
Like, and then I because I'm not a close friend for like with Smash, like the Matt from Notch, but with most people from Farbrausch, these are now very close friends of mine. And Farbrausch basically is a competitive,
the main guy, yeah.
Competitive group. Same with basically every major group there is. If they're still around, you hang out together, you get drunk and shit faced and stuff, and basically it's a super small circle of friends, and then you do more stuff, travel together, you visit each other. If there's a party, you crash on their couch. So yeah, really nice.
Super cool. Yeah, it's I obviously am a little bit too young to have been part of it, but the echoes of the demo scene. I mean, I love cracking. I don't crack the games, but I download the cracked games. So obviously every intro to a cracked game, all the music from the cracked games. Back in the day, the cracked games had like little animations that were like little demo patches. Now it's like a more a streamlined kind of crack scene, but that was kind of like, I never even knew what that was until maybe like 5 or 6 years ago when I understood what the demo scene was and made those two connections. But I love this kind of like counterculture, like F the system, but all through like art and creativity, not just through like anarchy, and not that anarchy is a bad thing, but not through like, breaking things and destroying things, but through making alternatives to things, or, finding ways around barriers and breaking down walls. This is a very powerful thing, I think.
At least, like, speaking from my side, I wouldn't give these people too much credit.
Okay.
So it's not like, so I did my share of like, I cracked a bunch of games, and I definitely wrote like a bunch of intros. And back then it was like, oh, it's so boring. Nothing is on television. So I guess I do this.
Yeah.
And then, okay, there were this bulletin boards where you could get like a disabled, like a disabled quota where you can download everything. But I don't like any of these things, so I don't really care about like this disabled quota. And it's nice. I mean, like with the intro stuff, it was nice to be somewhere and like somebody starting like a game and like, oh, I made that. Like, how did it find the way to you? Like without internet, like this is like try to find the traces of like how does this spread this file.
Yeah.
But I think, at least I don't know anybody who actually did any thinking of like counterculture stuff back then.
Really?
I know a bunch of people that thought very.
But it must be
like,
must be subconscious. It must be subconscious. Like, you can't make a whole scene around cracking games and not be counterculture. No.
I would
piracy is counterculture.
I mean, like
I mean, you're obviously in it.
I would challenge this completely.
Okay.
I have to say, I don't want to be too anti, but the people who drove this, the people who drove this that I know of, they had like they were just criminals. like they were like they had like
black hat
monetary benefits.
black hat hackers kind of thing.
Well, not even hackers, they were just like distributors and stuff, and they basically resold like the correct games and made a bunch of money from it, and like good money. And then eventually they found their way into like credit card hacking and stuff.
Interesting.
And so like they were like this was semi-organized crime, and like and then of course through them you got like access to like gaming consoles and stuff like like small little or free disc and streamers and tapes and stuff stuff. But nowadays you were like, oh, what? Like I mean, like how much money? Like you had this nice apartment in Charlottenburg. What did I have?
Yeah,
but
interesting.
I like at least like the scene I found was mainly organized and motivated by credit and money. And actually, it was like that was
motivated by
like,
what? Motivated by what? By credit and money?
Credit, like like being like
credit,
like
getting credit. Yeah, like you did that thing.
Getting credit, status, and money. And then eventually, like for me, like the whole demo scene stuff was great because it was like a liberation from that. You could make the intros without like the legal part of things. And actually, I think like most people got into the demo scene because they like back then. I mean, I literally know people that threw out their computers out of their window because the police was knocking on their door, and then and then know a bunch of people that actually got their computers taken away and like they got into like confinement.
Yeah.
So it's
that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing if the police come, but I know what you mean.
I mean, status definitely you get the credits, like.
That's cool, actually.
But I mean, like I still remember like this. Hey, mom, here, take this box and hide it from me. Like what?
Oh my gosh! Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
I wish there would be like. Like the movie Hackers, like that's like a classic Hollywood depiction of like what hacking is. Obviously it's like of super Hollywood, but there's no like demo scene movie that I would love. I would love if there was a demo scene movie or like there's a few documentaries that I've seen, but nothing like that's like good, like character based drama, like I wish there was, because I feel like it's such a, there must be such good stories there.
I'm very happy that there isn't. Look at this. Is like
maybe what if
more cringeworthy. I mean, Hackers. I personally like Hackers. Was like one of my favorite movies back then.
That's a good one.
What was her name? Sandra Bullock or so?
Sandra Bullock. Yeah.
I mean, she was pretty hot back then.
Oh,
and also like Pi. I really loved Pi. Like I had like I made a bunch of programs. Not Pi, no, the network.
Oh, the net.
Net.
I know what you're talking about. I think it was net.
Yeah. Yeah, there was like like a little Pi icon in the corner of the screen, and if you clicked it, then like I wrote a bunch of like demos with that. You click the Pi icon, and then like something special happens.
I love that.
But so I think it was good depiction of like the dreams people had.
I think so too. And it's crazy that it's from like the 90s, like it's like so pre everything. So demo scene kind of, I wanna get into like your finding or founding of visuals and real-time graphics, but maybe we could talk about it through the context of founding Tooll, because I want to get a little bit ahead now. So yeah, like what was your kind of like, the demo scene is obviously real-time graphics. It's also visuals, but it's completely different than like VJing with like, modern VJing or like what we would consider VJing today. And it's very different than like a node-based visual scripting system that is like an environment, right? Because, there's no like command line or anything like that. So yeah, what was kind of the soup that made that all come together, and how did you get into that kind of idea?
I mean, as far as I can remember, I made a bunch of intros, and these intros you wrote with assembly. Assembly 286, I guess, back then.
Oh wow.
And it sounds super intimidating, but actually I think if you would get into this and you would have like a little bit of introduction, you could master it, I would say, in a week or so. Because it's like very small function set, and there's not much that you can do because you have like this one screen space, and you write a number into this memory cell, and then you have a pixel. Like, and it's not. It sounds intimidating, and yes, it can get very, very intimidating. But get something on the screen that's actually not super complicated. And this is what I like. Most of these intros I did was like that. Like there was like one, I think it was mode 13 or something, and then you basically had like a linear block of pixels, and then you write a pixel there, and then you have a pixel. And with then it didn't do anything for like a while, and much later, like somebody, like a friend of mine, said like, I'm having this engine, with like a proper 3D engine, I think DirectX 9, and so let's make a demo together. So here's my demo, like what you want to change, and then I thought, okay, like I would change the timing a little bit, maybe change like the 3D graphics. So I modeled a little bit. Back then I was working as a 3D modeler, and then this turned into like complete madness. No? We made like
the floodgates opened.
yeah, and then like I had basically I used After Effects to render like scenes or something, and then I had like a script that could export After Effects into like some kind of like description language that could be read by this engine to basically drive the visuals and like have like this editing and switch between scenes and stuff. And then eventually there was a category called 64K, which was more or less dormant until these FibeRush guys came with a system of operators and stacking operators to do procedural stuff. And these, like the system was called Werkzeug, and it's still like one of the smartest.
What is it called? Werkzeug?
Werkzeug. Actually,
React.
like it's WERK, and it's actually a second K, I think, because it's to make it, and then ZEUG with a double K.
I've never heard of this. This is what? This is from the early thousands, or is this?
Well, it's 2000 something.
Okay.
And it's actually, I mean, like I had actually like a shit throwing competition with the people from Wikipedia, because there was a Wikipedia article about it, and then they removed the article.
Oh no!
And I was like, why? Like, this is the most important like UI development for like a bunch of years. Like, why? Like, this is like, this drove like so many other products. Like, why? Like, like this is.
Is it connected to React today? Like what React is now, or no? It's nothing to do with that.
It's similar, actually.
It's similar?
And I think like the native instruments people also have a bunch of. Actually, like one of the main developers of Tooll was working at React.
Nice.
Funnily enough, but yeah, it's similar in style, but they had the idea that to crunch something small, it's good to have to separate code from using the code, because code is like hard to compress, but using stuff is easy to compress. It's all about compression. And if you basically, let's say you have an operation that moves something, you have a translate node. Then this translate node is code. You maybe like, let's say a bunch of 100 bytes or so. It's impossible to compress with zip. But if you have like 20 translate nodes, they all have like the same pattern of space and memory, which makes them very good for compressing algorithms. And So like they
Almost
basically
like
build like
iterations almost. Would it be comparable?
you
or
could
not really?
you could also do iterations. You could do all
different.
kinds of stuff. And they basically figured out like, okay, like if we have like these operators, and I think maybe they were inspired a little bit by, I think back then there's like Smoke and Nuke and stuff.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
some
Nuke was node
post-editing
based.
things.
Yeah, Nuke was node based.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the developers was also working at a company that wrote like Nuke plugins. Chaos
Okay.
was his name.
Okay.
And through these plugins or Smoke, I don't know, like I can't tell them apart. But
Well, Nuke
he had,
is like
okay,
a Nuke is not Nuke was later, but there was another one before Nuke. I don't remember what it's called either, but it was the same company.
yeah. I think it was all Autodesk back then, or maybe
I think it
bought
was
then
before
eventually by
I think it was
Autodesk.
before yeah, bought by Autodesk. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, anyways, he had this revelation. Okay, let's separate like code from using code, and
Interesting.
like modularizing things and like making this not only compact in space for like the compression, so like super small files, but also compact in UI space.
Right.
Because
UI.
if you have like things stacking on top of each other, you don't have connection lines anymore. You have like tighter things are easier to read. Like if you have like nodes with like tons of space, it's like hard to like follow up what's going on.
Right.
And back then I was like super like, okay, like this is like the smartest thing ever. And then we basically we just cloned it. We okay, like super easy to do. And we did the same thing. And this was Tool 1.
So,
And,
interesting. So Tool 1 is, when was Tool first invented? Like what was the first tool?
I wouldn't even know, maybe like 2002 or something. 2000.
Wow, that early. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
A long time ago.
Interesting.
And actually, I could look it up. Let me.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know.
Here. So like,
I'm a huge fan of Touch Designer. I love their ethos of the company. I love the way that they run the company. I love the open environment and the interconnectability of everything. And I look at Tool, and it's almost like the way that okay, so let me preface this with like, when people ask me what tool should they get into, or what should they learn, should I learn Notch? Should I learn Unreal? Should I learn this? Should I learn this? I always say like, go to something that's going to give you an understanding of visual scripting. And Touch Designer for me is that kind of like ethos of that, where you have to kind of build everything yourself and learn through building how systems work, right? How architecture is going to work. So like Notch, we can talk all day about how much I hate it, but I also respect it and love it. But you're not going to learn about architecture from using Notch. You're going to get really fast, cool looking things really fast. But it's all built for you already. And I think that when I first was introduced to Tool, that same ethos and that feeling of like, oh, you have to build everything, you have to connect everything. I think that that's very powerful for your mind to understand how things work. And it's also an environment instead of a program. You know what I mean? It's like a coding environment or a design environment instead of a program that just does things. Like After Effects, it's not an environment. After Effects has modules and systems that you use. Notch is not an environment. It has modules and systems that you can use. Notch is made very procedurally, and it's made in a way that you can utilize things, but there's a wall, very, very obvious wall. If you've used Notch for more than 100 hours or even less, there's a wall. And Unreal is very similar. Like there's blueprints, there's so many different types of nodes, but there's a very obvious wall as well, where you have to start writing your own blueprints and start writing your own code. And Touch Designer and Tool, I think, is very unique in this sense that the tools that are given to you, the nodes that are given to you, is an environment building thing where you can actually make the things that you want to make with the base building blocks. You know what I mean? And I love that about these programs. And I think that it's a really good way to train your brain to understand how these things work. And it's very effective because more and more programs today are node-based. Visual scripting is very big these days because of the procedurality and because of the way people the way artist friendly is like a very, classic term, and artist friendly is going to be, if you want to do procedural artist friendly, it's going to be nodes. And if you learn nodes through a program like Notch or through Blueprints, it's going to be hard to pick up another one. But if you learn nodes through a program like Tooll or Touch Designer, your brain is kind of thinking in this idea of like stacks and adding and subtracting and math and pixels based on, channels and operations. I think it's very powerful for people like that. So, I think that I really, full disclosure, I've used Tooll maybe a handful of times. Every time I've used it, I've been super impressed and kind of like really enjoying it. But I kind of have to stop.
How many crashes did you have?
Not many crashes. Less about crashes, more about like I have to stop myself because I can't afford to learn another program right now. But that being said, I think it's a very powerful system. And today when I was kind of researching a little bit, I just watched your intro to the most recent version, and it's crazy how fast you guys are developing this tool and how fast the features that, like, when I first got into it, I'm like, oh, it doesn't do that. Oh, it doesn't do that. How fast you guys are kind of doing these things. So really, massive props to you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, really massive props to you. So I want to jump into your set here and kind of get a little bit to see what Tooll is and get introduced to it and see kind of what you're doing. But before that, I just want to have two more questions that I want to ask you about Tooll. And we can kind of jump into maybe the more esoteric aspect of it after. But why make it free? And why is not the right question. Why make it free? And what is so important to you about a community-driven tool?
I mean, the first answer or the answer to the first question is really difficult. So so this is tool 3, and every time there's an increment, it means no single line of code being reused. Really starting from scratch with a new programming language. So and tool 2 was actually, so there was not much Werkzeug in there anymore, and we actually tried to figure out whether or not to build a company about this environment. And this is actually the company I'm still working with today, so 12 years later. But for like commercializing an environment like this is basically not feasible, I would say. You need I tried that, maybe it will change in the future, but I would say it's like really, it's much harder than people think, at least like in a sustainable way. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't change the fact that writing these tools and developing these tools is the coolest thing ever, because it's just where usability and development and design and you actually can use your environment to build beautiful things come together. Right. It's like super rewarding. And so for me, I say, okay, like this is cool enough to build in your spare time and to chip off a little bit of my work day to work on this thing. Mm-hmm. And then the question is whether or not to get a little bit of money. So I made a bunch of very bad experiences when it comes to small money, because people have different expectations about money. Mm-hmm. Like eventually, I guess, like let's say if there's like a Gauss curve or so, and eventually you land in the normal distribution, then you don't really care that much about money, because if like you go to McDonald's or whatever to vegan place, and then you don't care if the burger costs like $8 or $9. You complain maybe, but you can afford it. Like you don't have to count your money. Mm-hmm. And if you fly on vacation, okay, you say like, okay, maybe Hawaii might be a little bit expensive, but you don't care whether it's Taiwan or Korea or so. You can afford it, and you might be concerned about carbon footprints, but not about the money. Normal people, like in the normal distribution of the bell curve. But there are people on the spectrum on both ends that care very much about money. and for them it's like crucial, and they can't afford to go with German trains because it's too expensive. Or they are so obsessed with money, even though they have like all the money in the world, that they are still using the bus, even though they can they can buy a bus company or so. They still ride the bus.
Yeah,
and
that's most people are not like that though.
Yeah, but it's like
most millionaires
you have these people,
have private planes.
Sometimes you have these people, and if you do projects with them, it doesn't matter how much money is involved. If there's money involved, like things get dirty super fast. And that's why my thing is, if I do stuff in my spare time, I don't want any money to be involved. Because then I can say, like, there isn't any money. So like, like if people ask, okay, like how can I pay with Tooll, for Tooll? It's like, okay, boost the Discord server.
Yeah.
So like, but right now like if people would send me money, I wouldn't even know how to distribute it. I wouldn't I honestly wouldn't know like how to like participate the other developers, and it would be unfair to like split it by commits. Like it's like totally weird. Like if you start thinking about this, you no longer think about like what you actually started the process with. And yes, eventually, I mean, of course, I'm dreaming of something like having like a Blender foundation, like a Tooll foundation.
Yes,
they could
yes.
work this full time. It would be
amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's completely mind blowing, but right now it's not the base.
So wait, Thomas, like, this is like maybe a personal question, but how do you make money? How do you support your family? How do you support yourself? Because Tooll it can't just be a side project. It's obviously going to be a pretty main project.
It is a side project. I have to admit that. So I'm spending probably more. Some people would say more time than I should with it, but I'm spending a lot of time with this. I mean, I recently heard the statistics that like the average American spends like 8 hours on social media or something daily. So like, or like 6, but it was an insane amount of money, of time, and this is probably the time I spend in Tooll in my spare time. I work with a company.
Okay.
I used to develop, and sometimes I also do usability and interaction design at this company. So the company is called Framefield. It's actually called Framefield because it was Framefield. It was like we had like a field of frames, and it's called for this because we wanted to do procedural frames, like fields of blooming procedural content frames.
Wow.
And this was why the company is still like called like this. It's still there. We are like 8 developers or 8 people working.
Is it a software or is it like a freelance? Like a too hard?
Software and design agency.
Oh, agency. Like got you. Cool.
And I have to say I love my job.
Nice.
Even though sometimes I complain about too many meetings and teams and whatnot, I still love the people I work with.
That's awesome.
I even like my clients, I'm probably one of the few people
relax.
goes into like, actually, I might not like the current way the progress is heading, but I like the people I'm working with.
That's awesome.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, you're in a very unique situation where you have this, and now, also considering that you have other people working on Tooll, I think that having some sort of foundation or some sort of place that people can donate money outside of like boosting the Discord server, I think is important because I think that, I'm not like, I'm obviously Jewish, Israeli mind. Like my brain is like money. I love it. I love money. But, it's, I can make that joke. You can't. I can make that joke.
Yeah. I know.
But,
and I won't make this joke.
No, I know. I'm half joking. It's probably not because I'm Jewish. I just happen to, appreciate and like money. But that being said, I totally hear what you're saying about making something free and this kind of ethos around it, because then it kind of, it doesn't derail you, right? It makes you kind of focus on the thing at hand, which is making this really beautiful open source motion graphics tool that is very unique, right? Because 99% let's not percentage, but like most of the highly used tools in the market today cost money. Some of them cost a lot of money, you know, and the fact that you are offering a solution that is a high level solution, not just like a toy or like a, you know, a fun little thing project, but like a high level production ready solution for free, I think is very powerful. That being said, back to my Jewish brain, you know, I think having this kind of place where people can offer you and your team some sort of support in the guide of like a Blender Foundation, you know, maybe even write it into your source code, write it into your, you know, EULA, I think is very good. And I think that it wouldn't be difficult for you to figure out a way and a system to distribute that in a productive way that is, you know, you don't have to take any money, but maybe the people that are working for you or, you know.
Recently, I thought about, it's super nice that you are mentioning this, because it brings up an idea I had a while ago. So I was looking up at, so in Berlin, there's an institution, foundation, you could call it, called Node Institute. It's a Node Institute.
Yeah, of course, I know them.
Yep, they're hosting the Touch Designer Roundtable frequently, and VVVB and so on.
What's his name? The main guy. I just was on a panel with him. Shit, I wish I remembered his name. I'm so bad with names. Super nice guy.
Everybody there is super nice, but doesn't matter. I can't remember the name anyways. So it's like I'm super bad with names. But like everybody there is super nice, like including like the people from Touch Designer I met there. So like super nice people.
Nice.
And anyways, I was looking at I recently met somebody who's like organizing panels, I think, for the Node Institute, and they thought about like having some sort of tool. I was looking at their course program, and then I found like this really interesting thing of like the VVV summer camp.
Yeah.
This is nice.
Yeah.
And actually, this would be something, you know, this would be actually like a really nice thing to contribute, and saying like, okay, like you're not paying me,
right?
But you're paying like if you're
getting this experience and you're getting this whole thing.
Well, or like, you know, it could be something like there's a pool of money. Like the larger the pool is, the more people we can fly in, and then we can rent like, you know, we can rent the place, we can buy the food.
Like a community-driven event, like where people can come and be part of it, and that's a great idea, dude. You should definitely do that. You should definitely do that.
And, it's probably, I mean, like I do this a bunch of times, like during the summer and during the winter. I have these retweets with the people from Farbrausch, of all things. But
that must be fun.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's
I mean, my favorite events are like the Touch Designer meetups, and like I go to Unreal Fest sometimes. You know, when you get to go to like meetups with your colleagues and people around you that are so excited about the program that you're using, it's like it changes your life. Like it really does, because it opens your eyes to things that are happening that you wouldn't see, and the physical connection with people that we're so not used to. We're so used to this like chat forum online kind of thing. When you physically get to hang with people, it's like it's really powerful. I think a community funded tool event is such a good idea, and you have such a strong community. Like it would happen. You know, you do it would happen. Like okay, you heard it here first. 2025.
The Tool Fest.
Yeah.
It would be it would be definitely super great. And and I have to say, like the best events, like if you like, you know, like this events where you go and meet people that are, you know, like not parties with friends, but, you know, like a conference like environment, like the Node conferences were the best thing I ever witnessed in Frankfurt. Like sadly it's only every couple of years, and I'm not sure if they are planning anything upcoming. But it was like, for me, it was the coolest thing ever, and I made so many friends there that I still like, you know,
today.
Still like me today and party with today, and I still like, you know, they are like, you know, stepping over and sleeping at my place, like people I met there. So it's it's literally life changing. Like,
Totally.
And so
it really is. You know,
thanks
and
for bringing it up. So maybe
hell yeah,
I will keep it in mind.
hell yeah, yeah. I mean, especially when you're younger, you know, and like, you know, you don't know about, like, I went to LPM in Rome in 2017, and that's where I found Touch Designer. You know, like, because, and I probably maybe would have found it anyways later on in my life and my career, but like, because I was around all these people and seeing what they're doing, and I'm like, oh, I perform with visuals, you know, but I never understood about real-time or generative. And you go to this place and you're just exposed to so much stuff. It's really powerful. So yeah, I mean, you know, we drove that home for sure. Okay, so let's see what you got ready for us. Let's jump into Tooll here. We're going to get an introduction from the master behind Tooll. One of the masters behind Tooll. There's many masters behind Tooll, but the main master behind Tooll. And we're going to see what we have here. Okay, let's turn this on. And let me get this here.
So maybe a little bit of introduction of what I was thinking about.
Sure.
Let's see if we can actually pull this off with like the audio syncing and so on. So for some reason, I misread the briefing. I thought like, okay, the fixed part of like our meeting is like having like a small live set. I have to say I have to pull a plug here. I have a project called Wake Audiovisual with my wife. Like it's WAKE Audiovisual, and I'm using Tooll for that. And Lena, my wife, is making awesome music.
Wow!
Either live
so
coding
cool.
or playing with keyboards and stuff. And like this is, I would say, very sophisticated. Like if you ever get a chance to see us live, I would say most people really liked it. But yeah, so
I'm sorry I missed this. I didn't know that this was what you do. You know, you should again, you gotta get those links, Bo. You gotta get 8 hours of social media at least.
yeah. I guess there's a lot of stuff going on. So I can actually maybe I can share my screen and I can show you the latest set we are working on, because
sure.
It's a little bit more up to date. So let's see if I find the correct thing here.
Hell yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah. I love this logo.
Thanks. Yeah. So basically, what we are currently working on is bringing together more coding and visuals. And then I'm actually, I don't know if can you also hear the audio?
I can now.
Some kind of yeah. And so busy. What you see there is tidal cycles, and this is Lena typing Lucid.
Huh.
And it's busy generative music.
Wow.
And
super cool.
So
and you're manipulating it as you're going on with the show via the command line.
Yes, precisely. So like she is basically typing on her MacBook, and then she's sending OC signals and NDI over network, and then basically the code you see here on the left side is NDI, and this is what I'm cross-fading this with the actual visuals made in Tooll. Wow. And this gets super elaborate. So if I'm basically if I'm jumping a little bit ahead here. So
wow.
So this gets like a very
is editing the command line part of Tooll? I didn't know that.
So so like the left stuff really is just like NDI. So like this is really she's editing this in a code editor on your MacBook Pro. So I'm and you can do things like this in Tooll as well, but not with audio.
So
and then
but that code's being sent to something, no?
Yeah, the code is sent, like this code generates on the macOS level, generates OC data, and I'm receiving this OC data.
Gotcha. Like, oh, super cool. I love that.
Hundreds and hundreds of channels. So it's a super elaborate.
You're sending you're sending shader data over OSC?
No, it's not. It's just OC, like open source
Just
sound control.
yeah, but you're
Like the
sending
hits
like
and the
you're sending like. Okay, maybe I'm
notes.
still confused. The command line is music.
Yeah, it's only music.
Got
And
you.
it
It's
drives
MIDI.
only
It's like
music, and
it's driving only music, and that's sending the data through OSC to Tool. Okay, got you.
And then and also
I didn't know you
basically
could
Tool
write music on a
triggers.
command line. That's how.
Well, it's a thing. It's a thing called algo rave. Yet another subculture for you.
Algorave. Wow, that's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's like a lot
Cool.
of people do this, and then we are currently exploring a little bit how to merge these two things.
Yeah.
Normally, you have like two separate screens. You have like one artist writing code on one projector, and then you have like a visual artist doing the same on another projector. And we try to now like have like this thing where actually the music notation is like a little bit more in the foreground, and then the visuals are like literally going together.
Super
Yeah,
cool.
and it gets
dude.
like it gets
I love the
very
music. The
elaborate.
music's good too.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, just pulling a plug without any. Obviously, I'm biased, but if you ever find the opportunity to see us live, come
When are you
watch,
guys playing
it's a
next?
live show.
When and where?
Good question. We need a promoter.
Okay.
So
Well, follow this space, and we'll update it if we can if we can.
I guess next is probably something like a VJing in Berlin.
Okay. Cool. And
So-
do you guys have an Instagram or something like this, or like a
The
social
Instagram
media?
is also big, audiovisual.
Okay, cool. We'll link it on the bottom here for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Wow, that's super cool. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Speaking of this, so like Tool, do you see my screen?
Yes.
And
This is
so
Tool.
I can quickly. This is Tool, and I can quickly jump back in. I think. Wait.
This is the special Pixtur build of Tool, obviously, with all the
No.
no.
No,
Okay,
it's not.
okay,
No,
okay,
it's
okay.
actually. I'm super. It's actually like this is all like open source. So like including like this live set here. So
Really, I didn't know
most
that
people
the
will
live
not-
set comes with as a template or as a project.
Yeah, it comes
Oh,
with,
that's so
as
cool.
an example.
You're such a dude. That's awesome.
So coming back to this notion we had earlier that I was like, I'm striving to do stuff, like building stuff live. And this is what I'm going to do. And this is what when I'm doing live visuals nowadays, like for parties and stuff and for gigs, I build stuff from scratch. So I don't have any pre-rendered stuff. Yes, I have a bunch of assets I load, but everything I build from scratch because this is more fun. And it's also interesting for the audience. So this is what I'm going to do. Half an hour. And then if it's getting boring, you just stop me.
I'll tell you. No, yeah. We'll talk in between. Don't worry, I'll bother you.
Okay, so let's ramp up the volume a little bit. And the credit should be due. This is a live set from SoundCloud from the same. So here is the same for half an hour.
Let's go.
Lat polskiej sceny techno.
My suitcase is packed with all your heartbeats. So I walk to their sound and head towards the sun. So my shadow will cover on the ground by moving away from the place where you took your last breath.
Nice. I like that. Really pretty depth. Sick. That was sick, dude. That was so nice. That was such a nice transition. This is wild, dude. Sick. Let's go the same. Let's go.
Hey, cat.
Super nice. So fluid. Just so nice and fluid, and just like the flashiness of it. It's just so great. How many nodes are we at? Just out of interest.
Not
a lot.
I mean, like
there's
I can press G here and it will regroup stuff. Everything.
Really not that many. Oh wow, where did that guy come from? What the hell? where are these guys coming from?
Yeah, it's like there's this node. Basically, it's fading stuff.
I love it. And is it a video that you're piping in?
No, this is just a bunch of images.
Oh, it's like a node that has a bunch of images in it.
it's basically it loads like a file path here,
Gotcha.
and then it scans like all the files in this, and then I think if
fade
you
between them.
Yeah. And
super cool. It's like a stable diffusion-y almost.
Yeah, a little bit, like a little bit more control, but
Yeah,
it's like a
yeah,
little
I
bit
love
like
it.
this. And it's kind of simple trick. So I think I want this to react to the images though. This looks rather nice.
Super nice. The color control is just awesome. And the particles interacting with the face. I love it, dude. It's so great.
Yeah.
You're piquing my interest.
Interesting.
Sick. Oh.
Something like that. I guess like
This music rocks, by the way.
oh, thanks. Yeah. Not sure. I think like the capturing is being a lot of competition here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on at once, right?
Well,
This
nobody
is sick.
shouldn't
This is
be
like
just-
such a nice. I mean, I have so many questions. I'm like controlling myself very, very much. By the way, to not ask questions. So you
Okay.
should.
I mean,
you should
we can
No, I'm
we can
joking. I'm joking.
definitely jump into question mode.
No, I'm
So,
enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. Continue, please. At least like another 5-10 minutes. It's really nice. You're in such a nice flow too.
Okay, sure. Lighter version of that. Very interesting. Okay. Good. Going on here. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, go for it.
Boom.
Oh, it must be the ninja.
Yeah.
Must be the ninja. You can
but it's still growing. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would imagine the ninja's doing like a bunch of CPU stuff to decode and encode and stuff. Could be my guess. I might be able. I mean, it still looks cool as fuck.
نصي اللي فايق يتحدى نصي اللي خايف يتمدد بين الاتنين في عركة بننق من أجل مجادلة مفيش مكان لمفاوضة قايمين على السر مفاجأة كسبت فرق فايق يتحدى خايف يتمدد اتنين في عركة من أجل مجادلة مكان لمفاوضة قايمين على السر مفاجأة من أجل مجادلة كسبت فرقا نصي اللي فايق يتحدى نصي اللي خايف المادة بين الاتنين في عركة بننق من أجل مجادلة مفيش مكان لمفاوضة قايمين على السر مفاجأة كسبت فرقا فايق يتحدى خايف المادة بين في عركة من أجل مجادلة مكان لمفاوضة قايمين على السر مفاجأة من أجل مجادلة سر مفاجأة
I know that feeling. It's so annoying. Yeah, that smokes that you were doing before, was it just like a post-process effect, or was it like actual some sort of
It's like,
smoke?
Well, it's feedback
On the particles?
feedback. So like, I mean, like the particle stuff. It can also almost look like smoke.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you were referring to is like if I only take this guy here and feed it into the output.
Yeah. No, but before that you had something even more, maybe it was the particles before.
I think this might have been the, I mean, like, maybe this was like a certain...
It was super nice. It was like just a really nice, like, it almost looked not fluidy, but it was like smoky, kind of like smoky billowing. It must have been the particles.
I'm not really sure. Like this thing can get really interesting. So, like,
Yeah.
So,
this is just the feedback.
Yeah, it's only the feedback.
Wow.
And it can get really quite wicked. Yeah,
I gotta ask you that this UI thing that you have, where you can like explore parameters, where did you come up with that? That's like, I've never seen that in a program before. It's one of the coolest things.
Well, it's basically the. You remember like the name of the company, Framefield? It's like I always dreamed about this, and then I built it. So it's actually, I guess it's something. I mean, like later I learned that the thing is called parameter suite.
Sweep.
So you have like a sweep. You have like two axes on
Mm-hmm.
on parameters, and then you can interpolate them.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's like every program ever invented should have it. It's so nice.
yeah, I think like this guy, and I mean like it's like super powerful, just to
Yeah.
get into like
It's like a
also, like,
VJ
just
dream,
like-
like
it's just like for like okay.
it's like you don't know what to do.
connecting to
Okay,
music.
just move your mouse around a little bit.
Sometimes it adjusts to that. And then like there's actually another cool thing I can show you later. That's actually like a little bit more advanced, but it's so advanced that I rarely use it. But yeah, it's definitely it's nice to play with.
Yeah.
So you had questions. Shoot.
Well, I mean, basically, like, you're starting off with nothing, which is super powerful, and you're kind of getting to all these really cool places, and not very many nodes, kind of like just going through maybe like from the beginning you were, was gradient. Then you had a very cool texture. I don't remember what that texture is called. Manhattan, I think it's called, the Manhattan texture, or it was the with all the little pieces, like not a Voronoi, but it's like what's it called, that texture? It's like the all the little boxes kind of growing inside. It almost looks like some sort of
okay.
what is it called, that texture?
I don't know. Like some people, it might look like a tree map, but I think like I'm not sure. Maybe are you referring to
Yes.
this thing here?
Yeah.
So like that's like so I mean so basically so like the tool has like these two modes. Like one is something I call like this focus mode, where like the content is in the background. And I first saw this with touch design, and I thought like these people, they must be nuts. Like like,
nodes
how
on
can
top
they-
of things.
Well, like how can they and then like years later I just like, okay, maybe like a trade out for fun, and I was really blown away how at least I can completely switch between like the node layer and the content layer.
Totally.
Like for me, it's
Sometimes
like really,
sometimes you get lost, but most of the time you can really like it's very interesting how
I
your
mean, like
brain can do that.
Yeah, it's from my like it's like crazy that if I look at the content, I don't see the nodes at all, and vice versa. And then there are like things where like like if you get like super crazy patterns, let's say you have like radial nodes, radial points here, points, and then we render this into a texture. This might be a good example on like how things work in Tool. So we increase the radio, I think. So now like every node has like sometimes these presets, and then we can go into like these presets here. You see like how we have this pattern here, and then sometimes if this gets like super crazy, let's say if you take these points here, only look at the points, and then add like a lot of randomized points, and then go into like we randomize this position, and then the random phase here, time. So with this thing, frequently I can't find my mouse anymore. And then I go to the left edge, and then basically it will fade out the content a little bit, so I can find my mouse again. But sometimes when I have content like this can quit.
Oh, because your mouse is like a little white thing moving. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so basically the idea is that it's actually, this is a good example here. So we have like the data is currently floating from left to right. Or flowing from left to right.
As it should be.
Eventually, Well, no.
No, come
At the
on,
next
come
version of
on.
Tool, like the data will flow up, actually.
Really
Uh,
interesting. Yeah, but I mean like directional. I mean directional. Like the data should flow directional, not all into one place.
yeah,
my
precisely. It
opinion.
should be like the nerd term for that is a DAG, a directional asynchronous graph.
Okay.
And basically, it's like you have nodes. These nodes can hold their state, but you can't build cycles. You know, the only way you can build cycles is with helper nodes that store like the state for the next frame. And I would say 90% of all content tools are that. This is like Nuke works. Actually, this is also like After Effects works internally. This is how Maya works. I don't know anything about Notch, but before obviously Touch Designer, like they all use the same principle of having like an acyclic graph.
Yeah.
And which
No,
direction, like
Notch doesn't, unfortunately. That's why another reason why I think it's
Ah.
not a great tool to learn visual scripting. It has a center
okay,
node.
well, yeah. And so basically we have like these, and maybe I switch into like a node that's like into a mode that's less confusing. So let's clear the background here, and then if you pin this to the output. So normally people would work in this mode here,
Yeah.
and then they can there are a bunch of like different views, and you can customize these views and move them around and whatnot. But most of the time I work in a layout that's a little bit like that if I build content. And then obviously if you have like, if you build real content like demos, you might have a soundtrack, and then you can actually do things like you can change the project from tapping to, I want to have a timeline. And then it's a little bit like After Effects. You know, you can go in here and set, for instance, like go into beginning and set like, I want to have a free keyframe here, and a
Keyframes.
keyframe
Interesting.
here, and then I want to
Wow.
have like, here it should be red, and here in the beginning it should be, I don't know, like white or something.
And then how long is the
And-
timeline? You could define how long the timeline is.
Well, the timeline,
Yeah.
look at this timeline. If I change this to, I can switch between formats. And look, this is the most beautiful timeline ever.
Let me see 1 second
Because
because it's
you-
being cropped out. 1 second.
No,
Let me
no, you
just
see, like
resize
it
it.
goes into.
No, it's being
goes
cropped
into
out
days.
on my edge. It grows into what? Into
interesting.
days? No, it's not your
Yeah,
fault.
so
It's
like-
on me.
I can basically move it up a little bit.
Oh, that,
so if
that is,
I'm-
yeah.
If I'm zooming out, so you know, I can go into days, 2 days, and then I can zoom in here, and then it's 2 days, 1 hour, and then I can zoom into the 2 day, 1 hour,
Wow.
35 seconds, and
Crazy.
eventually the frames. And yeah, I think like this is, I'm obviously
if I
I'm
ma-
biased again, but yeah,
But if I make keyframes on the first 5 seconds, when does the timeline like loop, based on what I'm looking at, or is it when the beginning and end of the timeline? How do you define that?
There is no beginning and end of the timeline. So like there is a beginning normally at 0, but then the idea is that there is a time. And so I'm not sure like how would I change this so you see the timeline here. Maybe I can stack something at a second. Window console, I can stack something below the timeline here. It's not
Nice.
cut off, and then I can maximize it again. So I'm not sure. Do you see like the timeline now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, excellent. So the idea is that so the data is flowing from left to right,
Correct.
and the one with this white dot, this is the one being viewed at the output. I can select this one, and then basically this one will be shown in output, and then this will have the white dot. But the evaluation is flowing from this dot toward all its children. And then in the order, so like it traverses this tree, and then it goes from right to left, top to bottom. So first it will evaluate this, and then this.
Okay.
And then during this evaluation, it will pass certain things, and one of the things it passes is the time. So you can do things like, okay, we have this timeline here, but you can actually do, jump out of this, you can actually do things like set time. and then you can say, okay, I want to have, let's say, a Perle noise or something. And then you see basically that the keyframe animation will be played back and forth.
So
So
it's gonna
the-
like start and end based on the first and last keyframe. Would that be correct to say?
No.
No. Okay. But then
It's
because a
basically-
keyframes are linear, right? Like they have a time when they start and time when they end. So if you're
But they are, let's say, so like internally, the time and tool is
Yeah.
in bars because we want to sync to, like, everything is about syncing to music.
right.
That's why things is like we don't use seconds, we use bars. I mean, you
Gotcha.
can switch to seconds, but internally we store bars. And then we could say, okay, let's say we have this animation here, and we stretch it and make it like precisely
4 bars.
4 bars, one measure here. Whoop. So and obviously, yes, you can basically go in here and set a loop range, a little bit like an After Effects. So now if you press play, this would loop for this one measure. If we zoom in here, we would see this animation being looped. But you could say, let's say I take this thing up. Sorry about that. I leave some space here and insert a group. And then I take an operator that is gray, which means it's numbers or data. And then I convert this number into a string, float to a string. And then I write this as a text and I put this into my group.
Okay.
So now what we see here is basically, this is the current time.
Yep.
And we see like how this is basically perfectly, right now it's also, it's, so I
Synced
can
to the
pause
timeline.
this. Yeah, and it's perfectly, if like it's here, it's like 4 and here's 0.
Yep.
But what we can do is then we could say, okay, I'm writing this, I'm setting a new time here. And now, no matter where I am, I will always play at 0 because I'm setting the time here to 0.
Okay.
And what this means is that you can now do things like, let's say we have like a mouse input, or like I say like we can have a gamepad input. I think this is really cool. Somebody added the game control, like a while ago, a contribution, open source contribution. And if I take my my controller here, and then I think I can say we have a counter. And now I think we should see, let's say, the right trigger here. And every time now I press basically something on my controller, basically this thing will increment. So every time now this triggers, we broke it. Did I break it?
It was working a second ago.
Yeah, it was working, but yeah. Since this is so, what this means is you can create animations, procedural animations that are synced and using keyframes, but you can then basically trigger them just by certain events. For instance, you can say, you have like an intro sequence for like one set that we did for Wake. For instance, we had like intermediate titles that were nicely animated, and every time there was a certain MIDI signal sent from Lena's computer, then the next sequence would start and would nicely animate, but change the title because the title was coming from a text file. So it's like.
So
okay.
you're. I kind of get it. Like you have the ability to treat the keyframes like almost like a triggered animation, and then you can go
Yes,
back
precisely.
to generative time that's just playing. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I like that. But it's like what I was trying to say before is that like once I pass the 4 bars, it's not going to go back to the beginning, unless you trigger it to go back to the beginning.
Yeah,
Okay.
precisely.
Okay.
So there is basically there's no snapping to also there's no snapping to frames, which might or might not be a problem. So people coming from After Effects will be confused. People coming from Fledged will be very confused. They're still alive. But so they basically there is snapping and so on. So if you move things around, it will try to snap to other keyframes and to other times. But there is no like no literally snap to like I don't want to have two keyframes at let's say at very close by. Some people would say like, for instance, if you go in here, they would say no, this should be forbidden because this is less than a frame together. I would say, well, nothing is forbidden.
Right.
So,
yeah, I like that.
Should be
nothing is forbidden
to do things. Yeah.
Cool. So
and
maybe we could.
Yeah.
No, you continue, please.
No.
I'd love to like get like just a very just like kind of very high level overview of what Tooll is. Maybe like just like the very very bare bone basic for, because obviously we've seen you use it. It's very impressive. You gave me like a little bit of an explanation of this timeline thing, but I'd maybe love to see like, okay, empty project, you know, the most basic kind of operation, maybe even just like a rundown of the UI. What I found so cool about Tooll, and this is what I always tell all my touch designer friends, is like, okay, look how fun this is. You can like shake a thing and it removes it from the node graph. You can, you know, this parameter thing that you were playing with before, like just kind of like what separates Tooll from other tools, if that makes sense.
So I think let's give you an example. So let's say there's an operator called sketch, and what sketch does is basically you can sketch. You know, you can say like my explanation is here. Like most of the time, tools do they have like a target audience. You know, and they say like this is our target audience. You know, like intermediate experts or something like this, and then this is what we optimize user experience for. And with Tooll, it's a little bit different. So if you have like artists on this side and you have like coders on this side, then Tooll is a little bit like this. You know, like it's super artist friendly, and then it's also super coding friendly, but it hides it a little bit. You know, like it's a little bit like it has a mask.
That's great. That's really funny.
And so like it has like tons and tons and tons of like features for artists. You know, like for instance, like one of the features I can show you that I promised earlier was, so let's say you have something that is not really obvious, like let's say you load like our mascotchen image here. So our mascotchen is always like this toad, and let's say you have displacement, and I personally I have no fucking clue what displacement does. You know, like I know, I mean, I developed I developed the op, but I have very very hard time to figure out what will be the result if I put something in. So let's say if I have like a radial gradient here, and I plug this into the displacement map, and then I start like cranking up the displacement, I wouldn't have seen this.
Right.
And then if I basically start like to do things like ping pong and messing around with these things, like why is this like now like split? And if I change interpolation, you just move, like why does it look like this? Like this doesn't even make sense.
Right.
But but this is, you know, what this place does. It's just very complicated. And then it's a good example for, okay, in Tooll, whenever there's a chance to make something more complicated, we make it more complicated. So it comes with a bunch of options like twisting and, you know, like displacements and like all these kinds of weird little shading ops. So the question is like, how do we figure out like what it actually does? Like what can it do? And there is a thing called that we call it explore variations. So here we now have our two nodes, then we can say, okay, like if we select these two nodes, so what does displacement do? And I click here, and it gives me basically different variations of displacement. You can go into like quasi land. So what happens if I change, for instance, the displacement offset here, or the twist, and let's say the chain, like, you can go through all these kinds of these operators, and then here's the width and the offset, and then maybe the bias and gain, and then you get like super crazy things you wouldn't expect this thing to do, and then you can go into like what, like why is it doing these things, and then you can look what the operators is doing, and then like, okay, interesting, wouldn't have expected. Sometimes it's also like it gives you things you might not know. Actually, this looks kind of interesting, even. But and so like super high level artist features, and there are like a bunch of these. So I would argue that the keyframe editing is probably top notch, I would say. I'm a little bit biased, obviously, but I think it has stuff like you can smooth things, and it has like it actually has like tangents and stuff. So it is like a little afterfix maybe. And you can render stuff. You you can have all these presets and so on. Twice to give documentation. So this is all on the artist side. On the developer side, you can say like, actually, what is actually this displace? And then you can jump in there and say, like, what is this node? Okay, these are all these parameters. Okay, interesting. And you can jump into this node and like, wait a second, like, and then this is the DirectX 11 API. So this is actually how in node format. So this is actually like this is the API. So there is a rasterizer. The rasterizer has these viewport properties, and it has like this. You can actually set the viewport, and you can go into here and define the viewport if you want to. And break things if you want to. So you can go really deep. And the cool thing is that you can actually go into. So you can hit this edit button here. So like to remind you, we came from home, and then we had this. I think we had this guy here. So now we are in VJing 24A. I don't know where we are in here, but we are in here. And then we can go into this place, and then we can take this guy and hit edit, and this will open basically the shader code. And then you can go and do live coding. You can do things like return float for yellow. And the nice thing is that this is crazy for developing.
Yeah,
I think there's like no better way to actually learn shader coding and developing, because you have like the profiling, you have like render doc, you can debug, you can inspect like all the buffers and stuff. So it's like super powerful.
So is everything GLSL, or is it all C++, or like what is the language?
So the language is actually C#.
C#.
So that's why like, I guess it's just as well to describe something for what it is as for what it isn't. So Tooll is not Notch, and it never will be, because Notch is C++ and highly optimized, and like probably the smartest graphics developer on the planet. But it's a little bit like you described it earlier. Like it's optimized for what it does, and it can this. Like it just looks gorgeous. It has like super beautiful shadows and skin space reflection, like all these kinds of things. Tooll can do some of these, but it will always be a little bit slower. In my mind, I don't care, because it's more important to actually walk fast than to get like, I don't want to build like
it's not Unreal Engine
games with it.
Right. It's not. Yeah.
It's not. It will not never be, and it shouldn't. Because there already is Unreal Engine, and there
Yeah,
are
yeah.
like a bunch of people working on it.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people.
yeah, and so this is a little bit, it's meant for the artist to go and explore stuff, and maybe like so far we have been looking at like very simple things, but let's take a very complex program, like for instance, like a more advanced project. So you see it obviously takes a while to load. So we jump in here.
Wow.
So this is a project I have been working a while ago.
Where's the output?
Sadly, the soundtrack is missing, which is a shame. But the output is actually, this is only explorations. So,
Okay, so
a while ago
turn
I
on
was
each one.
yeah. So basically, a while ago I was obsessed with optical illusion, and then I made a demo about optical illusions. And this is basically, these are like only trying to figure out, okay, what can we do? Like how will it look?
Oh, it reminds
And
me of
then
that Japanese artist with the, it's not slit scan, but it's like what's his name? I have a few of his books. It's like you can move like a lentinear piece of thing in front of it, and it starts moving everything. Ugh, what's his name? I wish I remember his name.
I think he should probably be in here as credited. So this is the actually output of the project, and so it takes a while to load because it's a huge project. I hope it doesn't crash. So I don't know why it's like jittering like crazy here, but
that's not part. That's not supposed to happen.
No, I think this is like I don't know. I think it must be something about the performance here. But so you have things like time clips and scenes, and so maybe we can jump into Full HD, and then basically, and then yes, we have to compile all the shaders. So it's a bunch of shaders also. Like once all the shaders are compiled, then it should run. Yeah, slowly it's getting faster. And so this is what a proper project looks like. Like there are tons and tons and tons and tons of keyframes here. So if I zoom this up, so like tons of keyframes. And but it's super handcrafted. Like every transition, perfectly timed to the music and to the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is tweaked and so on. So and then you can export this as a real-time demo. So this was a demo, but you can also render it very nicely as an animation.
Real-time,
so
yeah. Or like you can render it.
Yeah, you can go here to render video and then export it, for instance, 4K motion blur if you want to.
Nice.
So it's also nice. So it's a little bit. It also is a little bit of After Effects wannabe.
Right.
At least with
I would say it's better. It's way better than After Effects. After Effects sucks.
Well,
no,
I mean,
After Effects sucks. Come on.
Well, it had its good times.
Oh yeah.
But,
I mean, we're all After Effects junkies, but it's like fuck. After
I mean, a
Effects.
while ago, I was actually looking back into After Effects and like, oh, I want to do something in After Effects, and like, oh, wait a second, I forgot that you actually have to render. You have to
yeah.
To, like,
press enter and wait hours. Super cool. What about? Oh, sorry. I'm like a 3D nut. And I know that Tooll's 3D capabilities are maybe not focused on that necessarily, but I do know that there is a bunch of cool 3D stuff. Maybe you want to show us like a quick overview of that?
So yeah, I mean, so maybe to show a little bit, to show off a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I think we can go, let's say, giving credit. Maybe we can pause Winamp here for now. So to show that it can do nice things is maybe like this thing here.
Oh yeah, you were just
supposedly supposedly it's a thing. It's a pretty big event.
Oh, and, the biggest.
And I think there is I think it's always like the Winners League or something. Isn't there like isn't this? Yeah, I think it's this thing here. And yeah, so this is Tool. So
Wow. Not
so
real time.
okay, this is not real time. I mean, but well, this is real time, but the rendering of the file takes so long that it's basically so like the writing of the file takes so long, but it's still way faster than Cinema, I've heard.
Oh no. Yeah, I would imagine.
So
but I'm saying it's not playing in real time, right? It's this is Tool?
yeah. This is Tool basically.
Oh.
And not all of this. I was part of the Lucid Collective group. Very fortunate to be invited for that. But the beginning and the end is basically made with Tool. And this is like
Super impressive.
7,000 by 2,000. And I mean, I think on my desktop it runs actually in real time with this resolution. But
so
yeah,
can you
it
show
was made
like
for rendering.
because this is my bread and butter is projection mapping. Can you show a little bit of like that kind of workflow? Like, okay, I have a 3D model of a stage or of a building. You know, what can I start doing with that? What can I do with a 3D model from a building or like, you know, from a not like a pixel map, but not a 2D pixel map, like a 3D building.
I mean, we can maybe. So to be honest, I'm not really sure if I have like all the assets here. Let's see how this is going. And I think this probably might be a little bit too slow here. Resources.
Such a big honor to be invited to Imapp. I'm sure that must have been a really nice experience.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. It was really it was when I was asked, I wasn't really aware of like how insane this project would be. So I was like, oh my god, this is much bigger than I thought it would be.
I think it's the biggest projection mapping event in the world. I think maybe there's bigger ones in Dubai and stuff, but I think it's pretty much the biggest one.
Yeah, sadly, I don't have the original. Let's see if something happens here. This. So and we have this guy here also trigger. Okay, this is like you caught me a little bit unprepared on this one.
Sorry.
Maybe
this is a 3D model or this is a pixel map?
No, this is a 3D model. So basically, if you take the camera and look out of this, so basically so now this has the white dot, which means it's currently selected, and everything on its left side is relevant. So everything else is grayed out. That's why these are white and these are so faded out. And as you can see, like there is maybe 20 nodes. So it's not that much going on here, but it's still like a nice effect because we have like this these rings walking over the building.
This is sorry to cut you off here, but this is these are gradients moving on the texture, or this is a light moving in 3D space?
This is it's a little bit more complicated actually.
Okay.
So the thing here is that this is a GLTF scene, and this whole thing is basically obviously it's a cleaned up model, but it's maybe like 20,000 or so blocks.
Okay.
And these blocks are basically so this thing loads this as chunks into like a single buffer, and then it generates like the centers of all the blocks into particles, and then we can move these particles to do stuff. So like just like we had the points before, we have now like centers of these blocks.
Dude,
and then you can do things like You can do add noise, and
This
then basically
is
it will be
fucking.
add noise.
Oh my god. So this is my favorite thing. Like, okay, full disclosure. This is when I first found Notch. This was my favorite thing in Notch. There was a node called clone to particle. No, not clone to particles. It was called mesh bone deformer, some shit like that. And what it did was exactly this. It took the chunks of your model, like if your model is chunked, right, piece by piece, and put a particle on each piece, and then you could basically animate your model with particle effectors, which was like Notch's thing. Now, I've since left Notch and I'm now in Unreal World, and I've been chasing this rabbit of being able to do this thing in Unreal, and okay, fuck, dude, oh my god, like, is that a function of the of like, is that just as simple as just like one node, like just a one node thing, and then I can now, like, you can use anything to manipulate the particles?
I mean, let me.
Because this is like projection mapping heaven. Projection mapping heaven is taking your model with your chunks and being able to affect the chunks procedurally as particles, as points, right? Not affecting the actual geometry, but affecting the position, rotation, scale, blah blah blah, with the actual, with different types of effectors.
I mean, we can build this from scratch.
So basically,
we have like this. We load the GLTF scene, and most of the time, if you load like the GLTF scene, you wouldn't combine. I mean, I think it still needs some cleanup. Most of the time, you would.
Sorry, this is a specific thing for GLTFs. Like, would this work with an FBX if it was a chunked FBX? No. Okay.
I hate.
So
FBX.
I have to. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh no, it didn't.
So, Thomas, do I have to define in Blender? Okay, if I have a chunked model, I can export it into a GLTF automatically chunked like this? Is there a work process or is it not?
If you have a Blender file, you basically, by default, if you export GLTF, it will export everything that's there. If you enable GPU instancing, you can or you can't. It doesn't make a difference for this thing. It will basically have to mesh once, but use multiple times. But Blender by itself, you can go in there and center like all the anchor points into center, and then it will be set up. That's everything you need to do. There's no like.
You have to have the pivot points have to be in the center of the piece.
The pivot points have to be the center of the
piece. Wow. So GLTF has this type of function where it's basically, it gets you that data automatically. Is that kind of what we're getting at?
Which GLTF is just a file format with a very good API.
Okay.
And it's meant for like things like that. Like it's much younger than FBX, and it's meant to replace FBX in the long term, hopefully.
I've used it a lot on like internet, like on web stuff. Never used it in like production and like anywhere else really, because it's a small file size and easy to read. But like wow. Okay. We're gonna get into the weeds here. Maybe we shouldn't go down this rabbit hole. I should just bother you about this. But okay, so show me what it can do.
Okay, so basically, now we have to wait for like this file to be pre-processed. I hope it doesn't crash. Okay, it doesn't crash. So basically, and it's also like an interesting thing. So I didn't talk about. Like you remember, like like somewhere here, didn't we have like the sketch? No, it was somewhere else. I think it was somewhere in this other thing. Actually, let me show this. It's a very cool feature. I can use search look for sketch, and then I look for in children, and I can jump there. This was our sketch. Isn't this nice? And actually, nice. And somewhere here, I broke it. I thought like there would be our sketch here. Oh, there, here it is. Yeah, actually, the sketch is also like
it draws over time.
Actually, it has like like you can like onion skinning and stuff, so you can do
super cool
storyboards. But anyways, so like we talked a little bit about this, and I talked a little bit about this because of the shader development stuff. But the cool thing about this is actually that you can write C# on the fly without restarting. So the tool is running, but then you can write C#, and so you can actually develop nodes while tool is running and see like the result live, which is like insanely powerful for prototyping and things like that. And this is basically how we develop most of these things. And so this is just one of these nodes. It uses a .NET framework and a NuGet plugin, like another open source software that specializes in loading Generative, so we don't have to pass these. It's working really nicely. And then this thing has 3 outputs, and it's brownish, which means these outputs are on the graphics card. It's buffers on the GPUs. And it comes with a scene definition. And then sadly, currently we have to convert this into like a buffer. Just a buffer, I think. And it comes with a mesh, and it comes with these it has a material, but we don't need. This guy is the index buffer, and this is actually I think this should be like nobody think this is the indices buffer. I think it should be like this. And okay, maybe it isn't. This goes into here, this goes into here. This is this. This points. This is the structure. That is the points list. Okay. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing here. So let me look at the original. How was this here? So this goes into the list to buffer. And we are not using the second thing here. And this goes into the there's no. This goes into what the fuck? Let's move this over here. Let's rebuild this. I learn it for once and for all. So this is the thing we have. Then we have the scene point. Then we have the list to buffer. This is the points. And eventually this goes into the top points. And we have this guy, it goes into the last one, and this goes into the middle. Okay. Not really sure what's going on there.
Must be a tick box, right?
Yeah, maybe or maybe you have to trigger this update thing. To be honest, I would have expected this to work. I have to say, but yeah, I mean, we see that what I can show you is that so we can draw mesh at points. Maybe set this a little bit so we see something, and then have like a cube mesh.
Instancing on top of it.
Yeah. Interesting. So maybe this is just so actually I think this output view is broken somehow. Interesting. I think this was because
the sketch maybe.
Yeah, no, I think because it was like super slow earlier because of the screen sharing, I think this view somehow got fucked up. Okay, but now we can use this one here. Okay, so and maybe we can also there we go.
Nothing's broken. Everything's working.
Well, exactly. So okay, everything is working, and so we have this thing. This node eventually goes away because hopefully we don't need it in the long term. But the cool thing now is that this is this defines which part of the mesh is which mesh instance. So we can reuse the same columns. And these are the points. And with these points, we can do now all kinds of things. So we can, like a simple thing would be to transform them, super trivial. So we can move them around here.
Yeah.
All of them. Obviously, we can do things like we can move everything towards the right, but we want to select some points and limit the selection. And I say like, oh no, or like some go to the right, but some stay. Like so, and then we have basically this is the selection that moves the point over there, and like
Oh wow,
it's
now
a
you
bit
have
hard
like
to,
a
hard,
no, you can
hard
have
to
like
understand
almost
here
like
what's going on.
like
So
an
like
effector almost with a fall off.
yeah, this is
some sort.
like an effector field. So like we move everything towards the front that is in this circle, and then we can move the circle around. And obviously like this can be like crazy effective because you can do all kinds of things with this. And yeah, you can randomize things. It would be like something that's interesting. So
this is so good, dude. This I wish, like, I never saw. Is this new? This functionality?
this is pretty new. Yeah, this
It's
is
new, okay,
this
'cause
came
this
with
is
the
like-
last version.
This is literally like a Cinnafor D killer. You know what I mean? Like this is so good. Like, yeah. I mean, obviously you made it, but okay.
I mean, not yet, but we are discussing
No, but it's-
like some people from the community are heavy users of Cinema 3D, and they are making sure that everything that this Mograph has flows into the next version. So
Yeah, I mean, like obviously the way that you're setting it up is a little bit convoluted in terms of like, the effector affecting the thing back and forth, and the way that the nodes are connected. I don't think that I would have figured it out just as it is.
no,
maybe.
you wouldn't.
No, it's a little bit
Well,
opposite
no, you
backwards.
wouldn't. But most
But-
of the time,
Yeah.
there is like a documentation here, and sometimes there is, let's say, if you have something like this guy here, like the randomized points, like this operator is like crazy. Most of the time, you have an example here. You can drag in the example, and then you can jump into the example and then look what it does. And you can explore, like it will tell you, okay, this basically randomized points does this because, and then it will try to walk you through. And for like the whole mesh chunking thing, it definitely needs some clean up and some examples, and then it will be less convoluted.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
Right
okay,
now,
so
you're
now that we know that we can do this really crazy stuff, what can we do for rendering? Like lights, shadows, cameras.
I mean, one thing that is great is so it's not very beautiful, well, it's kind of nice. So you can do something like render with motion blur, and it's not something you want to do for rendering, for real-time rendering, but you want to do for output rendering. And if you basically select this, you can actually have like I'm not sure like how this is,
Yeah,
like
that's nice.
if this is
Yeah, you can see.
you have like proper like motion blur,
Nice.
and it's nice. It's not post effect, post
Yeah.
processing. It's like
It's
motion
like
blur.
real motion blur. Yeah, that's cool.
And so not for real time, but for rendering, it's nice.
Yeah.
And then you can do things like so most of the stuff is PBR,
Okay.
which means that you can do things. Let's say you have
Physical based rendering. Yeah.
Yep. So you can have like a set material, and then you can maybe change the, let's say, the
Metallic.
specularity or something, and then make it like shiny and stuff, and have I don't know.
I like shiny things. We spoke about that already.
So I like textures and stuff and normal maps, and so like it's like for the rendering stuff. Maybe I can show you.
Where is the
If
light
you go
coming
back to
from?
home. The light, there is a default light that's set up. So like the idea for us was a little bit that if I want to have a cube, I should see a cube as fast as possible, and it should
Yeah, I
look
get that, like a
halfway
default.
decent.
Yeah.
And every time you override them, so let's say as a simple thing, let's say you have a torus mesh, and then you want to draw this mesh, you want to see a torus.
Right.
And it
You don't have
should
to add a
look
light to see
okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Shaded in some way.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like
but
that.
you can set a light. You can add a point light. And then if
Okay.
you add a point light, it will replace the original light.
Gotcha. And there's shadows I see. So
No,
no.
but yes, half. I actually
It's ambient occlusion?
implemented shadows today.
Wow. Okay.
Literally.
Really?
Like,
There was no shadows
yeah.
before that?
No,
Interesting.
it was all
that-
fake. I mean, there's a shadow plane, but like no shadow maps.
Why
But
not?
it's just because the to-do list is very, very long, and I wasn't really sure how to do it properly.
Efficiently
And
and
I think now maybe I can, to be honest, shadow.
so
research.
the shadowing that
actually
I'm
I can
seeing the shadowing that I'm seeing on this torus, that would be more like, oh, okay, there's shadows. But the shadowing that
Yeah,
I was seeing in that
this is
torus was
really-
like an ambient occlusion, like a post-process ambient occlusion or a screen space.
Yes, it's screen space ambient occlusion we have,
Okay.
and it looks halfway decent.
This is shadows. These are
basically-
shadows though.
This is the thing I wrote
Can you-
today.
Do they soften? Can you soften them?
Well, it has like a thing called frequency something like a count. Already forgot occlusion frequency, FPS, FCP.
Okay. I mean, maybe even just implement
percentage
like
occlusion.
a fake soft shadows, just by like, whatever the
Yeah,
buffer is, just adding like a
Yeah.
blur to the buffer.
You can't.
can't?
Because this is shadow maps, and with the shadow maps you can't just blur the depth buffer because the depth
Gotcha.
buffer is.
It's
But-
included.
This could be, I think this percentage covered frequency, percentage covered FCP or so. Like there's a shadow method that like does this like a little bit of like smoothing there, and you can basically increase the resolution of that.
Gotcha. And then
But yeah, what you can do now with this is basically the normal flow would you render this into a render target,
That's what I was thinking, right? Into a render target and then
and then
hide
you
everything
add,
else
like,
that isn't a shadow.
SSHO. So
Oh wow.
I think some okay, looks kind of ugly actually. I think interesting. I'm not sure why like the SSAO with the reduced shadow, that's so strange. But then yeah, there's also things like obviously depth of field and so on. And I think there is. I want to show you like this guy here how to draw. I think this is the worst presentation ever. But
Not at all. This is. I mean, like this might be the presentation for me, but this is my show, so it's fine.
so like so you can load proper with GLTF. It comes actually with
Shading.
either you can combine these like maps and occlusion and metal and normal and displacement and so on. You can do this either on your own, or GLTF does this for you. And then you can actually load stuff and do like like a little bit of shading and so on.
Is that an
Reflections and so
environment
on.
map, an HDRI? Is that what that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So
an
that's
HDRI.
implemented
And
already.
I mean, you can also do this. So like here, there's the set environment. And it's actually nice because you can do things like, let's say you have like a text here. I don't know.
Tool is
hello.
amazing. Okay. Hello.
Then you can render this, and then you can render
Use
this
it
into
as-
a cube, and then you can use it as a cube map. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then this will actually do things like so by default tool supports HDR. Always HDR, so you can crank this up
Oh, nice.
and do things like go in here and maybe blur the background or something.
Yeah.
So I think
Maybe
I would
use
have expected.
maybe use a noise instead of a text, just so we can.
Wait
get, like,
a second.
more-
The text a little bit smaller there.
Maybe like a noise, like a fractal noise or something like that.
Sure. Can do.
You're taking
can do this
requests?
thing.
Play this track.
I can.
Use a fractal.
Oh, I can just blend and then use like a fractal noise on top of it.
There we go.
And then
Nice.
you can.
This is like my
go-
favorite way to get like psychedelic lighting is just add a fractal noise to an environment map and call it a day.
Oh.
Beautiful.
And
Sick.
and then
Sick.
obviously you can go in here and then do I don't know what like stuff. I don't know like crazy post processing.
Oh wow, nice. Wow. Okay. I mean, this is like I literally could sit here all day with you and like just get so much excitement from like what Tooll can do. I think that really the powerful thing of Tooll is that it's so exploratory. Like there's so many things that you could do with it and so exploratory. And like the more time you play and fuck around with it is like the more you kind of discover, which is like, that's that's what you want as an artist, you know. Like maybe not everybody, maybe people want simplicity and fast things, but that's just like you get bored fast. If you're a generative artist, if you're like, if you're interested in like reaction, whether it's audio reaction, whether it's like, reacting to patterns and noises and things like this, you want to be able to have like we were talking about before, an open-ended environment. So congratulations. I mean, like, I always was a fan of Tooll. I just never had the chance to like get deeper into it. But now you have massively piqued my interest with the shadows and this workflow with the models. Because as a projection mapping person, like being able to take a model and fast get super cool 3D looking things is like, that's heaven, And like, I don't want to render it. I want to be able to do it real time. I want to be able to do it in my program. So
I mean, like one final word. I think what I hope. I mean, obviously, the more people use Tooll, I mean, for me, like there's no thing that can make me prouder than people using something I built or I contributed to build beautiful things. But what's even more rewarding is if people use this to learn something. And it's just I've witnessed this now a bunch of times that actually people start into like they build like super elaborated graphs and eventually they figure out like, wait a second, I can use a loop here. So there are loops and data structures, and eventually they will start to build like very complicated things, and then eventually sometimes they make the transition into C#. It happened like a bunch of times now. And then they figure they find like, wait a second, actually it's not as scary as I thought it would be, especially now with ChatGPT and stuff. Like it's and then frequently like their mind is blown because they always thought like, okay, like programming is something like some nerds at a company like Adobe, they sit there and they write like a plugin and then they sell it.
Yeah.
And then I hope that the plugin does what I want. But actually programming is, no. Like you want something, if you know precisely what you want, this is the problem. It's not like writing the thing, figuring out what you want to write is like the problem. And then you can do this, especially now more than ever. More than ever. And so this is really like I hope if some people learn something, and then I can always have, I mean, some people think you must be like super smart. I'm definitely not super smart. I mean, I'm coming from the design end, and like I can only tell you that 10 years ago, I was requesting all the features. Like I designed how things should be supposed to look, but then I asked them, I want this operator and this effect and so on. And eventually I tried to get more into like the shader world, and it's you can learn it. It's actually now the resources like the book of shaders and so on.
Yeah.
It's like I can only try to motivate people to learn this stuff. And actually, one of the main reasons I'm doing Tool is like if you can write like a simple example that explains an effect, then you understand it. You know, this is like if I can teach people something, I need to understand it first. So and this is how I'm learning. So
I love that. Yeah, I've had many people on the podcast that, you know, got intrigued by GLSL and started just like learning it and you know, developing from it. And then especially with the advent of ChatGPT myself, I mean, I never wanted to touch code. You know, I was actually turned off by C# and Unity the first time that I was introduced to it. And luckily I found Touch Designer like almost the same. It was in LPM. And I got, you know, obsessed with this visual scripting. But then as you get more deeper into it, you realize that there's really nothing like once you understand the logic of like, definition or not definition, but like modules. And like, you know, this connects to this, and this is like a reference to expression here, and this is a reference to a thing here, and variables. And then it's like, okay, well, this is all kind of the same thing as, you know, line code. And with the advent of ChatGPT, I'm like a beginner, I would say beginner level Python developer now because of my understanding of visual scripting, and then the advent of ChatGPT being able to prompt it and get a starting point. I can now, you know, write some things in Python. And
I always try to encourage people by saying the complicated part is not these cryptic lines on characters. You know, you think this is not the complicated part. The complicated part is the data flow.
Yeah.
Figuring out what is like,
you want.
you have a string here, and then eventually it should be particles. So like how does it like
right. What is things doing? What are things doing?
Yeah, you know, why is there a particle here and not there? You know, like what's the transition between this? It's like sometimes obviously like things get crazily complex, but actually this is the exception. Most of the time, like the things, once you understand what's like supposed to do, it's surprisingly simple. And then
Totally.
actually you can actually totally ask ChatGPT, I want a compute shader, I have like this data structure, it should do this, and it will give you now valid code.
Yeah.
And especially with something like Tool, you know, like you have like, I have this shader. I mean, like these shaders, and like let's say, like, okay, one final example, because
Sure.
I think I'm very excited about this. So if you go back to like this, can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So we had this. I think we had like this example earlier here with like this with this thing here. You know? So this is an operator, and it has like a lot of parameters. If you think about it, a lot of parameters. If you click in here, so like this is always the same thing. So like like the majority of this thing is just parameter parsing. The main thing is like this thing, which you probably would copy. And somewhere in here, where is it? This is the. Am I blind here? This is the actual shader. And if you look at the shader, it's okay. Maybe it's okay. It looks a little bit intimidating, but if you think about it, like how many parameters this thing have, it's like 100 lines of code with a lot of line breaks, you know, short lines of code. And you know, like you could totally take this, paste in a ChatGPT, ask them, okay, I want this to like, what does it do? And it will explain to you what it does, line by line. And then you can tell, okay, like I want them to like fly towards the center of the screen, and it will do this. And you can paste this in, and it will work. And it's crazy times. And I can only encourage people to like don't get be freaked out by AI. But if you're not using it, things will be even more scarier.
Oh yeah, for sure. I started using Claude. Have you heard of Claude? It's another LLM.
Yeah, I tried it a bunch of times, but
You
I
weren't happy?
think, well, the I had a bunch of programming issues, which I tested like with different like I
LLMs.
tested with Gemini, Claude, and also ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly it should be better than ChatGPT, but
Supposedly,
at
yeah.
least in my use case, it wasn't.
Interesting.
Like it made like it stuck with similar problems.
Mm-hmm.
And now with like the O1 is just crazy. And then we have a subscription at work. So
You mean
Claude
ChatGPT,
would be
the new ChatGPT 01 you're talking about, the new one that came out?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's very good.
it's just it's super.
It's smart.
I mean, actually, so like full disclosure, like I was dreaming literally 20 years of writing shadows, and literally I have 2 books in my shelf about implementing shadow maps,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how I made it.
Well, this is the thing that like you were saying
So-
before, there's no reason to be afraid of it. Like, there's no negative thing if you can start and get a starting point from the chatbots. Like, there's no reason not to, especially if you have an idea and it's like talking to your friend. You know that there's this thing called rubber ducking or goldfishing. There's like a different thing, like, but it's like you just talk, and then through talking about something, you solve the problem. The chatbots,
Yep.
the LLMs, are that basically. I mean, at least I'm finding that a lot of times is that I start writing something into the prompt. I prompt it, I get a result, and then through the prompting and seeing what the result is, I'm understanding other things.
Yep.
So it's
And
very
then
powerful.
You are thinking also through, like, if you can't even answer, like, if you can't
Ask the question.
ask somebody
Yeah.
like a question,
Yeah.
then you still need to process like what you
100%.
actually, what's the problem you want to solve.
100%.
And no LLM, I mean, they will help you, but they will not help, like, they will help you formulate the questions
Yeah.
and to understand it more thoroughly, and it will tell you like, maybe not, this is the wrong approach, and you could use this or that algorithm. But like it's interesting that like for me, I mean, I'm obviously scared shitlessly about like the advent of AI, but it's also for me like it's a total heaven, because
Yeah.
suddenly I could do things
things.
where I needed like my developer friends earlier, or like like okay, like what's the difference between unordered access buffer and a structured render view, or so, like. And you look at the documentation of Microsoft, and it's like Microsoft documentation is just crap. It's super hard to read. I don't know why they fail so miserably to write like proper documentation. But ChatGPT will walk you through and will be very patiently explain this, and will like never be annoyed or like.
There's a podcast that I love, Lex Friedman podcast. I'm sure most people know about it. And he just talked about recently about like he started answering questions of the people, and so one of the questions was his fear of AI, and he said really like what we're kind of echoing here of like it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to learn how to use so that you can use it better than other people. Like I don't think that AI is going to. I mean, it might replace people's jobs. It might find a place to switch out low-level developers, but it's still going to need to be able to. It's still going to need the guidance of humans. At least I think in this iteration, it's not. There's no consciousness to it. It's not thinking by itself. It's just regurgitating information that it has. So I think until they figure it out.
I'm very I'm equally excited and equally like we literally scared shitlessly. And I think like Lex Friedman is like one of these people. He's a super nice guy. Like I think he is actually super nice.
A good person, yeah.
But he there's also no denying that he lives in central Austin in a super rich neighborhood. And basically most of his, he mustn't be afraid because, like, like
No,
if the world ends, like his buddies will like make sure that
for
he finds
sure.
a spot.
Yeah, but the world ending is
So
like, that's the world ending. I mean, I'm from a country where the world can end any moment, so this is kind of like, I think,
yeah,
part of reality. But I try to focus on like and this could be a nice discussion, but like, I'm a spiritual person. I kind of like believe in some sort of a higher power, and, I don't really define it. I don't think it needs to be defined. Like, but I do try to, I'm a very skeptical person. I look at things very skeptically. I don't trust anything the government says. I don't trust anything that, authorities say. But when I had a kid, I started to realize that, like, and I believe a lot of conspiracies and things like this. But when I had a kid, I started to realize that, like, it doesn't necessarily help my kid's future or the future of humanity in general if all I'm focusing on is the doom and gloom and what could be the worst thing and the worst thing that could happen. And
totally.
like those things can coexist. Like, I can still be skeptical, believe in conspiracy, understand that the world can end at any time, but also be like, okay, well, the future can have beautiful things, and we can have nice things from AI, and we can have good things from nuclear power, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I think that it ties into spirituality, where for me, the idea of spirituality is, and that spirituality is a dirty word, but the idea of, let's call it this kind of idea of focusing on this positive is acknowledging the good, right? And focusing on like the thanks, like appreciation for the things that exist. This is not even spiritual, like psychological. There's a lot of psychological study about making lists of things that you appreciate and thanking things. It just creates a better outcome to your psyche and your consciousness.
I mean, been there, done that actually, and I'm, like I would say, I obviously once like it's like a pendulum, but most of the time I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, like like I'm pretty healthy, considering my age. I'm still like working out. I play competitive badminton and stuff.
Oh,
So
wow.
like I'm
Serious. You're such a
so
German.
I'm yeah, very. So like I'm very in a happy, stable relationship. I like my apartment, my city, and so on. So like there's a lot of things to be grateful about. With AI, there's like like I don't know, like I'm a little bit of a sci-fi guy, like
Yeah.
read like not every book, but I like
Asimov fan, obviously. You don't like Asimov?
Asimov, I have.
Come on,
No, it's
bro.
not really. I'm the Stevenson guy. I have to say, like Asimov is a little bit too old school for me.
Okay, it's too old.
But yeah, or like it's a good thing. Like have you heard about like the Culture series?
Which one?
By Ian Banks, the Culture.
Ian Banks, I've
series.
heard of Ian Banks, but I don't know
Yeah.
this series. No,
Yeah,
it's a good one.
it's interesting because it's like the only proper book that describes a positive outcome with true AI. Or like actually it's 8 books. I mean, it's like super dark books, but at least like the AI part is the positive
shine.
part of these books.
Interesting.
And but I'm wondering, like I have to say, like the insane speed of this development, and like it's not tapering off anytime soon. At least like I don't see it. No, I don't see like that like LLMs like there's a diminishing decrease plateau. I look at like what I could ask like ChatGPT like a year ago or half a year ago, and it like the answers are only getting better.
Yeah, but that's not
And
necessarily.
they're very good like a year ago.
But that's not necessarily meaning that it's getting better. It just means that the models are getting bigger. I don't think that.
Well, yeah, but what's
eventually? Well, because eventually you're going to reach a point where where it has all information. We have a finite amount of information. Like
I think it's not only the information, but also like the processing and the quality of this processing and the accessibility
I
and the
totally
response
agree with
speed
you.
and so on.
But I think that AI is very hyped, and I think that I don't think that it's anywhere near to the point where it can think for itself and create, like, consciousness is like a big word, like forget that, but just like thinking for itself and coming up with unique ideas. I don't think it will get there in our immediate time. I think you're right. The way of it understanding things is getting better and better and better. But understanding is not coming up with new things. You know what I mean? It's like
this is also not a thing I'm afraid of. I'm more like scared of like
automation,
the rate of change, and automation is just one aspect. But like let's say, like you have. Let's say if I sample the pool of people I know, 3 of them are English teachers or translators.
Right.
This is like this is something like this. Yeah. Let's say 5 or so are like visual designers and illustrators. I also I even know like a bunch of tech cab drivers, yes, you're like, oh, like self-driving cars never coming, but I'm watching like what? Like, have you been to San Francisco? It's already there.
Well,
it might come slower than kind of, but it's like it's kind of coming.
It's kind of coming, yeah.
And then you have things like I mean, frequently you had like even like developers, like it's interesting that like developers thought that we are the safe ones, but no, they are the first one to be replaced.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And if people say like this is not true, like this is not true. I mean, like I know people that code websites just by with ChatGPT, and before this they hired like a freelance developer. Like how is this not being replacing?
Yeah.
And yes, people will always say like, oh, more websites are going to be built, which is true. But I would say the rate of change it's just like this is not just a next level. This is like a lightning storm.
So
and I'm just scared that like nobody's like they're talking about like foreigners and immigrants. Like this is
like,
your problem.
Yeah,
well,
that's always the case. But okay, so Thomas, when you were a kid and you were getting into computers and you were going to school and you started seeing more and more computers coming out, didn't you feel like, or even like you worked at Nokia, okay? Like think about like Nokia then and Nokia now, right? Like that's a pretty, you're talking about 6 years since the first Nokia to the iPhone, right? Maybe even less, right? Like 4 or 5 years. So, and that's like Nokia. Everybody had a Nokia. Every single person in the fucking world had a Nokia, and now everybody has an iPhone. So don't you feel like that's like kind of, in a way, similar, like to the? No. Why not?
No, it's
You think it's faster? You're saying it's more exponential?
Yeah, it's exponential. I think the problem is, yes, you could say, I don't know, like maybe, let's say you have things like Uber. Like it's something that completely changed, like I would say, like it changed. It changed the American landscape, I would even say.
For sure.
And like it was like hard in America to talk about public transit. Now it's completely impossible.
Right.
Because everybody like, why would you even care? Like, like I have Uber and it's so convenient. And this is a bad thing because after like Uber is still individual traffic, and like the world would be a better place with public transit.
Totally. And they take advantage of their workers and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like Uber is an evil company.
Totally.
But you could argue that basically the iPhone enabled that. And I have my position and I have online traffic, and then this basically this but it didn't matter if it's an iPhone or an Android, or like this was just like a logical and if there wouldn't have been iPhone, then you could have done the same thing with
On a
Nokia.
Nokia, right.
Like it would come eventually. I think the AI is like inventing iPhones. It's not like there's coming a new thing and then you can do some.
Right, it's like just out of the blue. Like here's an iPhone.
It's the process of inventing iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this. Like it's not that now you have something new. It's like now everybody can invent iPhones all the time, and not only iPhones, everything. Like very positive things. Like I don't know, like let's say super interactive, free teaching tools that taught people to not have a German accent. To like something. I need to manage my vinyl collection or something,
right?
Or like share, and like all these positive things. Something where you would need a developer. Now you have it for free, and it just will work out of the box. And soon there will not be development. You just ask OpenAI or whatever Siri, and it will like do the thing. And I'm pretty sure this is coming very, very soon.
I don't know. I feel like.
But then you also have the easy stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I on one hand, I'm waiting. I'm like intrigued to see what's gonna happen. On the other hand, I'm very skeptical. Like I feel like this is the kind of classic thing of okay, think about VR 5 or 6 years ago. Forget like the stupid expensive Apple headset that didn't do anything to the industry. Okay, there really has not been much change in VR in 20 years. Now they say that there is. Meta and Facebook will say that there's all this bullshit, but it's always just about like your IPO and getting more interest in your shares. Like now don't get me wrong. The difference between a headset 20 years ago and a headset today is immeasurable, right? And we're getting very close to having glasses that are AR glasses, and that's how that's going to change our landscape. My point being is like there's a very big, I think in Silicon Valley and in technology in general in the modern age, there's a very big difference between like what it's actually doing and what they're saying it's going to do. And like I feel like you could see Tesla is a great example of that. Whenever Elon Musk says he's doing something, it's going to come out next year. It takes 10 years. And even after 10 years, it's never what he says it is, So, and like, and this is the most profitable company in the world. So, like, I feel like you're right. Like with AI, it could be exponential in a different way because of the nature of what the thing is, right? Of like the way that it will automate things. Yeah. But I think we're very, it's what?
I mean, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Right now, like it's good enough for me. I'm waiting a little bit. I want to have like the advanced voice mode in Europe as well because it looks really nice for like actually language learning. But besides this, I'm satisfied. For me, it doesn't need to get any better.
Right.
I'm sure it will get better, but for me, like this is like as good as I need it to be.
Yeah, and like we talked about before with capitalism, it's like that's unfortunately the driving force is how do we make it better so we can make more money. But I feel like that's like a diminishing thing. The danger is like with AI is that it might not be diminishing anymore. That might be like the problem is that like, okay, how do we make it better? We'll make it so good that it fucks us all up, and and one person makes a lot of money. But like I feel like that's like the classic 1984 thing, but it's like at the same time we're already kind of past that so long ago. Like we've already been in 1984 since 9/11 really, or whatever, even before 9/11 probably. But it's like, so I don't know. I feel like I feel like also the positive aspect of it is kind of like you said, like we're in a golden age where we can develop anything we want. We could prototype things so fast. People that were just artists can now be artists and developers, and I think that that's like kind of what you're trying to do with your software is kind of bridge that gap, right? And this is kind of like a nice time to be alive. We do have to wrap things up, but I just wanted to ask you. I have a few other questions I didn't get to ask you, but we'll do another episode at another time. I have two questions, and please, like,
Okay,
you know, if you
shoot.
want to choose which one you think is more interesting to go down a conversation with. So
Oh,
you
wow, it's already
mentioned,
late. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's late. You mentioned, let's just jump into this small conversation, and then we'll finish it off with the final question. So you mentioned
Okay.
generative, like VJing versus the demo scene, and kind of removing video, like VJing is not video mixing anymore, right? It's kind of like real-time scripting or real-time generative, and
Hopefully.
yeah. And I love that
I love
idea
it.
because it ties into kind of like what to me is so beautiful about generative, which is that generative is basically taking nature and reality and putting it into patterns and ideas, or like, algorithms
Yep.
and simulations. So you're kind of, in a
Yep.
way, synthesizing the beauty of, you can call it God or whatever you want to call it, or nature. Let's just call it nature and evolution and the beauty of that. You're taking that and now you're infusing that into your art, which is what art always was. Art was always like, oh, I see something, I'm going to draw it. I see something, I'm going to replicate it. I see something, or I hear something, I'm going to, do it again, replicate it. And generative art is that, but to infinitum, and also like built in. You take a noise pattern and move an object, you're using nature to move that object in a very esoteric kind of way. So I kind of love this concept, and I feel like, what is your kind of idea about this? Like, what about generative algorithms and art kind of like fancies? Like, what does it do to you? What does it make you feel?
I mean, like so I'm let's say I'm not very spiritual, but it doesn't change the fact that there is a lot of beauty in nature that you can appreciate more precisely if you look at stuff. And if you, let's say, you using a software like Touch Designer, Tool, Nudge, whatever, that is procedural, Blender, and you play with something like Perl and noise, and then you use this to stack instances, and you do this like for an hour or two, and then you take a break and you go outside and you look at trees, the only thing you see is basically Perl and noise. And you see like how, like, like you become aware of like that there are no four-sided petals. I don't know how you call this, like, like flower heads. Or it's very rare because it's not a Fibonacci number. And like this procedural stuff, like the interesting thing is that you have, let's say, like the thing I built earlier, like the live visuals, like maybe it was like 20 nodes, maybe 30, doesn't really matter. And each of these nodes is maybe like 10 floats, like 10 float values, which is actually not that many if you think about this. But with these 20 or like with this like 300 float parameters, you could have built something completely different. Something it could have looked like completely different and would have been a completely different mood. It still would be the same, like even like the same graph would look completely different. Not even talking about that you could obviously arrange these nodes in a different way. And I think this, like when you build procedurally and model procedurally and starting from small stuff and then making, like, seeing like, wait a second, like suddenly, like I only have like these two nodes. Why is it suddenly become so complex? Like, why does it look so where is this emergent thing coming from? I personally think this is a very rewarding thing. and it helps me to look at nature and stuff, and like think about like for me, like sometimes maybe I'm born with this. But I think it's more like a product of working so much with like procedural content. Is like for sometimes at the beach, like some people would like, okay, I'm sitting here and then I go swimming. Of course, I do this as well. But I think about, okay, like what's the average length of the wave? Like why is like a wave like always between like 5 and 10 meters wide? Like what's the distribution curve here? And why is this? Like why? Why does it come with like this? Like is this like the curvature of the ground that like putting it like it could be? Is it like the surface tension? Is this the weather? Is this like breaking stuff down, like I think like, okay, like how would you actually build this? Like teaches you to see stuff when you pay close attention. It doesn't mean that I'm not enjoying it. It's not that I'm like, oh, I wish I would be on a whiteboard. It's like the opposite. So yeah, I'm not sure if it answers your question, but I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was saying that it does completely. And I totally relate to that. I have the same when I look at a lake or like water, and you see like the the noise patterns, or you look at I have this all the time when you see like a field of grass or something, and the wind moving through it, and it's like that's like a whirly noise or a purling noise or something, and and it's like why, right? Like why, like especially when you see something beautiful like a Fibonacci pattern or like the way a pine cone is like oriented, like. The question of why, I think, is so important to human existence and consciousness that it's like that is the question that drove all of human development, right? And kind of like is like the driving force, and especially you made a really nice point right now of like it doesn't take you out of the experience. It actually pushes you into the experience where. Sometimes some people would say like, oh, asking why the whole time is confounding, and you're going to reach a point of like existentialism, and you're just going to be like upset at everything. And but I think the opposite is true. I think that the more you it's not even questioning, right? You're not really questioning reality. You're just kind of you're like inside of the thing, and you're kind of like, why is the thing making me feel so like like why is it making me feel this way?
Yeah.
And it's very beautiful.
I mean, for me, like let's say, like this whole. I mean, it's interesting near Stevenson. I think like this whole like spirituality, like is like things, is everything predeterministic, or is it basically evolving? Like, is there a soul? Is there free thought? Like this is like I think like this whole. Literature, like like most of his works are about this topic, like what is free will and stuff, and I'm a little bit. So I personally would, let's say, so I don't think that there is like reincarnation and so on. So, but and I definitely don't think that there are like like virgins in the sky that justify like suicide attacks or
at
whatever.
Least
Like
40 virgins, at least.
yeah, but on the other hand, I think like if you look at the pine cone, and then you count the rings, and then you see like it's always 5 and 13. There is no like there might be an answer for that. But there is always like you take any pine cone, at least in Germany, and you like count the spirals, and it will always be like 13 in one direction and 5 in the other. And it's like, holy, like what the whoever can't be amazed about this and can't see like the true like deepness and beauty of the world we are living in, like
I feel bad.
So like if you can't see the Like if you can't appreciate this, and I don't have to understand it. It's just like it's nice to discover this thing. Like holy crap! Like why is this? Like not who built it, maybe also like who built it. You know, like who made the simulation? Like it's just amazing enough that it is like it is. It's always like nice to appreciate it.
I agree.
And procedural content generation definitely like helps you to see this stuff.
I think so too. I think so too, especially when you realize what it is, you know. And again, I'm definitely no scientist, definitely no, don't have a deep understanding of math, but I don't think you really need to have a deep understanding of math to appreciate the math in reality and the beauty of it, you know. And I think that this kind of generative procedural art kind of helps you understand it more. All right. Well, this was such a nice conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you. You know, you're such a nice guy, and I'm actually upset that I haven't met you before. But I'm happy that we got to talk. And you know, Tooll is so cool. Tooll is so cool. That should be the tagline. Tooll is so cool. And
definitely needs a better name, but this
Tooll?
is like a topic on its own.
I think it's great. Don't change the name. Don't change the name, please. It's a great name.
It's the worst name ever, and it's like impossible to find.
It's hard to find,
especially with the band.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate it. I think everybody should check it out. It's free. Why not? You know, just as like a kind of a send off. What is your kind of dream for Tooll? And you know, what is the future for Tooll? And you know, really share with us whatever you want as we say goodbye here.
I think I mean, obviously, Dominic and I are working on a new version that will bring us a little bit closer to maybe like cutting the chain to the Microsoft universe. I mean, obviously, we will always be .NET, but it would be nice if it ran natively with Vulkan on Linux and Macintosh.
Oh, so you're going to move to
and
Vulkan?
I think it's,
wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's linked like
Smart.
We are making. I'm not so sure.
Well, it's the trend. I mean, everything's moving.
Yeah, I'm very opinionated about Vulkan. Let's not start this discussion. But yeah, this is one thing. You know, like we are working very much on like putting this project on a stronger foundation, maybe having like a proper installer and stuff, like all these kinds of things. And the other thing is that so even though you might think the UI is great, and I think it is not too bad, it will be much better. So I built a bunch of prototypes I've been working on, and I hope to, like, the next version will have like a new graph where things are being stacked again, and I think it will be even more playful, even more accessible, even more fun and accessible for like live patching. And yeah, this is my hope to get this out so people can try with it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Let's see where this is going.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Thomas. Really lovely to meet you, and I look forward to getting a
great conversation.
Wow, what an episode! So full of inspiring information, high-level knowledge, and a little bit of a history lesson for all of those interested. I enjoyed talking to Thomas so much, and I cherish the time that he gave to us, and I really hope to talk to him again soon. Definitely check out Tooll. There's really no reason not to. It's free. It's what we all love. Generative art in a really awesome, fun-to-use package. I highly, highly recommend it. Thank you so much to Mantis Smash for the intro and outro music. And next week on the pod, we have a lake of information. See you next week.